Good evening. Planning Board is now in session. Monday, August 15th. First item on the agenda is 7 p.m. public hearing continuation, Park Central site plan review. We received an email from the proponent's attorney back on last Thursday, the 11th, indicating that the revised plans, final site plans completed on or about Monday, August 15th, which is today, and I'm guessing that they were just brought into the room. So here we are, and I'll turn it over to Mr. DePietri and his team for the continuation of the public hearing tonight. Good evening.
Hello. For the record, Angelo Catanzaro, and I represent Mr. DePietri and Parks Central LLC. That is correct. The email last week indicated that the 100% site plans, as opposed to the 98% complete site plans, would be circulated either today or tomorrow. They were completed today. They've been emailed directly to Fuss & O'Neill, and we have brought 8 full sets here this evening. We realize, and this was part of my dialogue with the town planner, that the board obviously has not had time to look at the 100% plans. Although, as I will make a short presentation in a few minutes, the 100% plans are literally just some minor changes from the plans that the board has had since sometime in early April. I understand from dialogue that went on at the last hearing that the board had elected not to review the plans that were presented and not to submit them to your consultant. Although the consultant has had them, because it's the same plans that were provided to the consultant in connection with the Conservation Commission and in connection with the Zoning Board. Be that what it may, this board certainly deserves the time it wants and how it wants to review plans, and if 98% plans weren't good enough to look at, then that was your decision. But we understand that now you do need some time to look at these plans, and now you have them. We can give a brief overview. We do not have our engineers with us tonight to explain in detail, because we figured that you would probably want your consultant's comments and you would probably want to look at them first before you had any questions for our engineers. But we can provide you with a brief overview of what those few changes were to the plans. Or we can waive that, and we can wait until the next hearing and have our engineers give you a formal presentation and answer your questions at that time. I think the important thing is tonight that regardless of how you want to proceed tonight, and we'll leave it up to the board whether you want to hear what the changes are or not, the first order of business is we need to agree on an extension of the public hearing date, okay, and an extension of the time within which the board has to render a decision under 17410, because right now it expires on the 17th of August, I believe, and once again, we understand that that's not going to happen, and it can't happen under the present circumstances. So I would like to address, and I had requested if we can move this, continue the hearing at the conclusion of tonight's public hearing, or just agree on a date now to August 29th, which is 29th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, which will give the board and the consultants that period of time to look at the plans.
Did you want to give the presentation first or discuss the date?
Discuss the date, and then it's up to the board whether or not you want to hear the presentation. That's.
As I stated at the last meeting, I think even at the hearing back in July, that we checked the availability of the board members, which I did. And the next time that we can have all the board members together is September 19th.
Okay, and that's a date that's entirely not acceptable to us. It doesn't work. There are other time constraints, and we're not going to be agreeable to extending the time within which you can make your decision to September 19th. I mean, I don't know what the constraints are. We certainly understand that people's availability, and they have other commitments and obligations. But for a project like this that's been going on this long, particularly in view of our concern that the board, for whatever reason, didn't take the opportunity to look at these plans when they were 98% done, when your consultants had them, to now move this out for another 30 or more days is just not acceptable. So I would ask for the board to reconsider and having a meeting the week of August 29th.
Do you really think that that's appropriate? In July, and prior to that, it was stated that these revised plans would be forthcoming. They just showed up 10 minutes ago. Do you really think that that's appropriate for you to say to this board that it's unacceptable? I don't think that's appropriate,
Well,
sir.
that's your opinion, Mr. Chairman, but our opinion is that what was not appropriate was for the board to sit on plans for such a long period of time when 98% of the information that you needed and that you could have reviewed was before you. It appears that the reasoning for not looking at plans that are substantially completed, okay, as opposed to 100% completed, when we all know, okay, that there's going to be tweaks and changes and go back and forth, a lot of that could have been done in June, in May, in July, and this board elected not to do it. So if you want me to comment on, is that appropriate? I don't think so. And now to extend this out again, okay, we think it isn't appropriate to extend it out. So that's our position, and obviously the board does what it wants to do.
Well, this board has a long history of accommodating proponents, listening to the proponents, especially when they say there's a revised set of plans, additional information to be provided. And I think if we go back through the countless site plans that this board has gone through over the years, you'll see that when we're promised a revised set of plans, that we wait until we get them in order to have our consultant conduct a peer review. And the same thing for the board members to review it and the other town departments. What we're doing is completely consistent with the way we've conducted site plans forever.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree with you. Many occasions I've been before this board, and we have filed plans with the planning board and conservation simultaneously, and we've run the hearings parallel. Okay? Parallel. And
Isn't that what we're doing now?
No, it's not, because you did not give the plans to your consultant when the conservation got them in April. You chose not to. So it's in complete opposite of what you just stated. And I've been before you at least 4 dozen times with many projects in this town, and every time I've submitted, it's been with conservation and planning board at the identical same time. And as we got changes, we worked them through with you guys and conservation back and forth. We've never waited till we were through conservation and had what you perceive to be 100% set of plans with the I's dotted and T's crossed before you gave them to your consultant. It's never happened before. This is the first time it's ever happened, to tell you the truth.
I believe if you look at the tape in July, when we stated, and when you indicated that a revised set of plans was on its way, and we stated then that we would wait for those plans to come in.
I agree.
And have the peer review conducted at that time.
You did state it, but that was
And
your prerogative.
you agreed to that.
No, I didn't agree to it. We didn't say anything.
Well, check the tape.
Go ahead and check it. You did state that. I didn't say, fine, we're willing to wait. That was your prerogative. You made the statement. Who am I to tell you when to hire your consultant? That's not up to me. That's up to the board. I did state that they were, I might not have said 98%, but I said they're substantially complete. There might be a few, in fact, I stated they were complete. There might be some minor tweaks from conservation is what I stated. Minor tweaks. And that's what that plan set reflects. Minor tweaks with conservation. That's the only thing that we're waiting for.
I'm going to open it up to the rest of the board because I don't, it's probably not appropriate for us to continue this debate between yourself and me. Mr. Mills.
I am not available August 29th to have a meeting. So unfortunately, that will not work at all for me, prior commitments.
Mr. Jenks.
Is this different from when you were seeking waivers and telling us you didn't want to go ahead and commit to working the plans because you didn't want to spend the money to design something and then have it change? Is that different than us saying we didn't want to review things, spend the time doing that? You can say one's time, one's money, but they're the same.
Well, not really.
Is it different?
No, because the plans that you guys
I
got in
agree.
April were 98% set of plans. Just like you get with any other project, Mr. Jenks, many people file concurrently with the planning board and conservation. And as the planning board makes changes and the conservation make changes, we tweak the plans.
That isn't what I'm saying.
I didn't understand the question, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is back when you were seeking waivers, you were telling us you didn't want to spend the time on the plans without knowing what waivers you were gonna get because the work could be wasted. Is that any different
Any different than what?
than us not looking at the site review with plans we knew were gonna change?
No, I would say it's completely, I would say, yes, it is much different because we weren't aware what the conservation was going to change, if anything. And the stuff that the conservation changes isn't always reflective of what the planning board talks about.
The other item I will add is from today with those plans to when we do sit down in a formal review at a meeting. I don't know about other members, but I spend a lot of time on them. So it's not like I'm out going to a concert or doing something I like doing. We're working. There's a lot of work behind the scenes to review them, just as it is for you to prepare them.
Well, Mr. Jenks, we already
What's
got,
the rush?
no, there's no
All
rush.
of a sudden?
No, listen, we already had 3 meetings with the board, and we have what we believe is your last comments, subject to the peer review's comments. We had 3 meetings here. I got lists of comments from everybody here.
I would suggest to you 3 meetings on a project this size isn't gonna cut it.
Well, I
It's
didn't-
going
I
to
didn't
take
know
longer.
But we were, that the number of meetings is based on the size of the project. I would think it would be based on the number of questions you have, not on the size of the project.
Well, the number of questions come out of the size of the project. If you're talking about a 10-lot subdivision, that's probably not gonna take as long as this project. So,
I could
I mean,
disagree.
has something come up that makes this a deadline, you've gotta have it
Well,
by?
Mr. Jenks,
I know
the-
you don't like the delay.
No, the board did review the plans. We got comments back from the board. And at no point did anyone say, we're still gonna review them even further. We got comments from everyone on this board here, everyone.
And you took that as our final comments?
Well, I didn't hear anyone say, all I heard was, we're waiting to give the plans to our consultant. I did not hear from the board, we're waiting to look at the entire set again. Because again, that just contradicts what you were saying. You said you wanted to wait for the full set of plans.
I would suggest in the future that you ask the board, is this your final comment?
Well,
Because
I'm sure it wasn't your final comment, because I'm sure you were waiting for comments from the peer reviewer. But the entire board did look at the plans.
Well, sure,
Okay.
Uh,
and we'll look again.
Right, and Mr. Jenks, we've been saying all along that, you know, and again, the percentages I believe that we use, these are 98% plans, okay? And we all knew, and, you know, in essence, what areas were probably going to be looked at. There was really, in our mind, and, you know, the plans have been before you for almost 120 days. And and knowing that we said they were 98% done, to put off your extensive review, and we appreciate the largest of the project and the time and effort that it's gonna take you folks to put into it, but that process should have started 120 days ago, and it apparently did. It apparently did, because you did give comments. Okay, right. So there really isn't that much more to look at. Now, I mean.
Really?
the changes.
That's a great judgment.
Okay, it's not a judgment, okay? It's an observation based on what changes were made to the plans since you've had them. We didn't redo the plans.
We
okay?
didn't say we got through the whole plan we had at the time. We did, what's a meeting? 2 hours maybe? So 6 hours? You think that's all that goes into the review?
Of course not.
Well,
Well, I also think that you review them not sitting at a meeting. But again, you know, are there issues, or are we in a rush? We want you to do your job, we want to get it done, okay? And by agreeing to extend it to September just doesn't work. Then September becomes October, October becomes November, and there has to be an end to it. Plus, the review that we are here for. Number one, this board had the opportunity and was requested way back when, and excuse me for dates, to provide comments to the zoning board under 40B. That was done a long time ago. The review here is a review under the other permit, okay, which is a limited review. That's what you're doing here, okay? It's a limited site plan review. That's what we're here for. That's what we applied for. That's what we're here for. Now, we feel that it can and could have been done in the time that you had the plans. And we were willing to extend for another couple of weeks because, yes, you just got the plans. Yes, we promised them in July and they weren't, and our engineers just didn't come through for us, but now they came through. And, you know, had they come through in July, we would have been probably finished with this by now, but they didn't. And so that's just our position that we are forced to take.
Mr. DePietri, in your 4 dozen or so projects, have you ever told the planning board, here they are for review, and oh, by the way, you've got 7.5 hours to do it? Of course not.
I've had projects done in 1 meeting, I've had them done in 10 meetings.
Sure.
It all depends on the project.
You've got,
Not
absolutely,
based on the
that's my
size of the
point.
project. It's not based on the size of the project. It's based on the number of questions that the board has.
It's based on the complexity of the project.
I wouldn't call this project complicated.
You wouldn't.
No.
Is this typical of Southborough projects? You've submitted 4 dozen, have 47 of them been this size? Come on, it's, well, what is the
You can have a much smaller project with much
ramification
more
of
complexity to it.
not?
I think what I'll do is continue down the line. Phil, if Mrs. Luttrell has anything to say, and then since we have the benefit of town council here, I'm aware through knowledge and experience of some of the things, some of the planning board's options, but fortunately, we have council here that may be able to help guide us. Mrs. Luttrell.
I'm not available on the 29th. I'm on vacation. I know for myself, although you say that the plans were 98% complete, or maybe not percentages, almost complete, in my mind, I had no way of knowing how extensive those changes would be and how different these new set of plans would be from the previous set. And it made perfect sense to me when we were told in July that new plans were forthcoming, and Mr. Chairman decided to hold off on having Fuss and O'Neill review them until those plans came. And so they just showed up today.
So we're at a point where the current approval period ends on August 17th. Proponent is asking to continue the hearing to August 29th, a date where the planning board members are not available, and not available until September 19th. I could ask town council to help us. I believe one of the options is for, if the proponent does not change the approval period, requests a change, then it's either constructively approved on August, the site plan is constructively approved on August 17th if the planning board takes no action, or the planning board can take action tonight and approve the plan with conditions, or deny the plan based on the fact that it was an incomplete submittal until about 7:15 tonight, when the plans, which we have still not looked at, nor has our consultant had a chance to look at, if a denial based on an incomplete submission is appropriate. I believe those are our options. If you could help us with that, Aldo.
It is. No, this filing.
Mr. Chairman, the way you have explained the options, those are in fact the standard options for site plan review. If possible, the concern I have is that if 98% of these plans have been submitted for several months, then clearly the planning board needs additional time. If possible, beyond the 29th, but before September 19th, if that would be appropriate, it would be the best course of action. If you chose not to, what you said as options are available.
I guess we would have to check the 5 planning board members' availability beyond, between September 1st and September 19th. I know that Monday, September 12th, is a conflict for at least 1 or 2 of the members. And that's why we informed the developer, the proponent tonight, that September 19th is a date that all 5 members can attend. I have a request form here. Request for continuation of / extension of a public hearing, and the dates and time are blank. The way it's usually done is the proponent works with the board and agrees to a date and time to continue. It says here the hearing shall be continued to, and then there's a blank, and then there's a time that's blank, and let's see, the time that the board shall have to reach a decision on the matter shall be extended until. So there's a continuation of the hearing, and there's an extension of the approval period. If you're interested in doing that, it's right here. If you're not, then I guess we'll assume that you're not going to request for an extension of the approval period beyond August 17th, and not request a continuation of the public hearing.
As I indicated, we are requesting the continuance of the public hearing, and we will agree to an extension of the approval period. We're just not on the same page as to another 30-day extension. So I will, and then the
Yeah, that's good.
If you want to take a minute, we can do a recess.
No, we're okay. Thank you, though.
it'll just take 30 seconds.
Oh.
What date? That's Labor Day. 12th. We would also consider, even though I wrote down August 29th, I obviously heard that two of the members are not here. We would consider other alternative dates before or after that date, if something could be worked out.
So the request just put before the board is to continue the public hearing to August 29th and the approval period to September 12th. So if we continue, if the board votes to continue to the public hearing to the 29th, a date where we're quite sure at this time that it would be 0 members available, I'm not sure if anyone here is going to make a motion to do that, knowing that they're not going to be around. Now, the extension to September 12th is something that that may work if we're able to find a meeting time between September 1st and September 12th. But I know September 12th is a date when, I don't remember which board members told me, but can't make that one, and that's why we're on the September 19th.
There are also dates, and I don't know, right after Labor Day, and again, I don't know what members, or I don't even know what Mr. DePietri's schedule is, but the first week in September. I mean, but I heard you before saying that the board couldn't convene until September 19th, period. So I guess, I mean, we'd be listening. If you can tell me that you can get a group together the week of Labor Day, then.
What's the date of Labor Day?
Labor Day's the 5th, and then you have the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And
I'm available.
we could do that also. We just thought you would want 2 weeks or more after the meeting, and, okay, but you have the plans now, and if any night that week could work. The
Mr.
30th or the
James.
31st would work. But once again, I understand if you're not available, you're not available.
It's, at least for me, not a matter of just a meeting night. It's a matter of having time to do the work. So pushing it in to Labor Day just makes it worse.
It's 30 days, or approximately, it's 4 weeks until September 12th from tonight, that you'll have the plans, and I think once you sink your teeth into them, you'll see that they're fundamentally the same plans that you had, regardless of whether or not you've looked at them before. So it's 4 weeks that you'll have the plans.
Did you submit these electronically also, or can you, or?
They were sent to Fuss and O'Neill electronically, and we can provide them to whoever wants them electronically.
We'll just submit it to the town planner. She can forward them. It's through Dropbox.
Mr. Mills.
You know, I mean, I don't think we talked with Jesse at our last meeting when he was going to be available, so I don't assume you don't have any idea what his availability is.
Other than September 19th. And he's currently
It's not available for
outside
2
of,
weeks.
I think, telephone and computer access,
Correct.
which is pretty good vacation.
So I would not want to commit to a date. I know it's without Jesse's input before we, I mean, unless we could do it tentatively, and if he can't make it, but then we post it, we're still going to have to meet, so I don't, it's not. I wouldn't want to do that.
Need all 5. We're okay with that.
So that would be September 19th.
No, I said we don't need all 5.
Well, that's, that's your, I guess,
That's what he's saying.
That's your
that-
statement, but we're trying to have the planning board run the planning board. I mean, if you've agreed to, September 12th, I just, at this point in this project, I just can't understand why another week, especially after the multiple month gaps between ZBA meetings.
And I don't want to put words into Mr. Jenks' mouth, but if we extended the public hearing and the time to make the decision to September 19th, which I don't think we're inclined to do, but if we did, okay, is that even enough time? And again, it just, I don't see, I mean, that means, okay, so we put everything off to the 19th, the extension to make the decision and the public hearing. Is that enough time? Or are we gonna be back into the same quandary that I was afraid of when we first started this, that it really isn't September 19th? It's really something else.
Mr. Jenks?
I think a lot of that depends, we can't answer, depends on the questions and how long it takes to get answers, which part of that we control, part of it you control. My personal thing is I am out of town from September 7th through the 14th. That leaves me 3 work days before that meeting. And it leaves me, today's 15th. Three weeks, maybe before that, which I suppose if I had nothing else to do, that would work.
If I could, for a minute, Mr. Jenks, I think it's important that it's understood that we're trying to do the best we can with what we have as far as resources and support in our own lives. And I think that all 5 of us have and will continue to assure the proponent and the public that we will work as hard as we can, as efficiently as we can, toward resolving this. And that's about all we can do. I think we're making that commitment here tonight. Mr. Town Council, Mr. Cipriano.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to cross into the administrative realm, but at the same time, I want to try to keep the planning board out of harm's way. If you lose the jurisdiction of this, it's going to be appealed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Is it possible to at least discuss in public the changes that have been affected between April's draft and August draft? Is there any administrative sense in that? And then see if you can get an agreement that you've made at least some general progress tonight, an agreement to September 19th.
Mr. Mills.
Thank you for the suggestion, and I think I was gonna jump in before you stood up as well and ask, I mean, typically, I think most of the more difficult questions come, well, in a lot of cases, the more difficult things to tackle come from our consultant. So with the understanding that, okay, we got them today, Fuss and O'Neill just got them today, assuming we get comments back within, what would be the typical reply from them? I assume it's not a date that we have set for a meeting, but, I mean, the back and forth will still be happening with them. And as soon as we get comments back from them, that gets shared. So, if it's everything, the ball is still moving, and we can see that as we go as well, if we still meet on the 19th, hopefully most of the comments from Fuss and O'Neill are worked out, and then it's just any residual questions that we have.
Fuss and O'Neill has been fairly responsive, okay, in the inquiries made by both the zoning board and Conservation Commission. Fuss and O'Neill has commented fairly extensively on some of the issues that I think this board is also concerned with, including drainage, issues like that. So I would anticipate, and once again, I don't know what their schedules are either, that you would probably get some responses within the same short period of time. Well, they've been responding about 7 days after they get an inquiry. 7 to 10 days, they've been fairly responsive. That's the best I can tell you. What we've seen with other boards, they've been fairly responsive. What I would ask is that we do, I'm going to take up the chairman's suggestion, if I could have a 5-minute recess. And I would like to speak with my client, and I would like to speak with town council, and maybe we can resolve this.
I, go ahead.
If you're going to speak three-way, I've got to have at least the chairman of the planning board with me to understand what you're asking.
That's fine.
I'm going to tell you that the availability of the planning board is known through the end of August and a little bit beyond. The availability on September 12th is known. The availability on September 19th is known. The extent, the volume of comments back from our consultant is not known at this time, and the consultant's availability is not known at this time. I don't think anybody disagrees that they have had times when they've turned things around quickly. This is a huge set of plans. They are familiar with them relative to the conservation review, and that may help. But I still don't think it's appropriate for us to speculate and speculate on people's ability to meet these dates, especially after multiple extensions have been granted for long periods of time to the ZBA and the Conservation Commission. And we're looking at 1 week till September 19th. With the assurance, and it's easy for us to assure you, that we are going to keep our foot on the gas pedal on this thing and make sure that it's done efficiently, but it's going to be done right. It's not going to be run by the clock. It's going to be run by doing it right. Nothing's changed. Mr. Mills.
Motion for a 2-minute recess.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? See you in a couple minutes.
Thank you.
Planning board is back in session. Just handed back to the board is a revised request for continuation / extension of a public hearing. The date, the applicant has changed from, the hearing shall be continued to, and earlier it was August 29th, which is crossed out, and now the hearing shall be continued to September 19th, 2016, and I'm going to have to put a different, there's a time here, it says 7 PM that we put in there, but I believe it's going to be 8:15, because we have 2 other public hearings that night. And then the time that the board shall have to reach a decision on the matter or matters shall be extended until September 19th, 2016, and there's an asterisk with a note, subject to applicant receiving, is this consultation? Consultants' comments on or before September 6th. So if the consultant comments come after September 6th, does that imply that the September 19th approval period would be extended?
No, it implies, I understand that you cannot fully control when your consultant gives his comments. What you can control is, like you just suggested, that you will put the pedal to the metal, keep your foot on the gas, and try to get us the stuff on time, okay? Our consultants also need time to review Fuss and O'Neill's comments so that they can get appropriate comments back to you, not on the morning of the 19th, but in advance, so that you could, you know, act on them and read them and react to them. So what we're asking for is a good faith effort to do that. I think what I'm saying is, if we don't get them by the 6th, we are still stuck with the 19th as the date regardless, so. And then we would have to consider whether or not we are gonna request another extension.
Okay, that's the way I took it.
I mean, I can't, I'm suggesting that we probably won't, but I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's try to get our comments back by that date. I think that Mr. DePietri has gone more than halfway on the issue, and I would hope that the board would work with us to try to get us that information so that we can get our comments back to you in a timely fashion also.
So there's no assumption in that
That we're gonna
aspect?
extend again, right.
No, that if you don't get comments by the 6th from the consultant, that then you have constructive approval.
No. Okay, I don't,
No,
Right. We don't-
because we'll be here on the 9th.
Sure.
We'll be here on the 19th in the public hearing, which also happens to be the same date that the approval period ends.
Right.
And then there's a decision on all of our part, which is there still a valid reason to continue the public hearing to another date, and therefore the approval period, or not? And we won't know that until the 19th.
Correct.
Hopefully, we'll have a better feel for it before the 19th, especially, you know, as these things come in. So, we've talked about that. You've got subject to, but your words in explaining that are that you are really extending. You are requesting an extension of the approval period to the close of business on September 19th.
correct. I don't think I could, even though I use the word subject to, we are looking for the board's commitment to get us those comments by September 6th, if at all possible. And if you don't, you still have an extension through September 19th, because that's what it says there.
And
I-
that's not the close of business on the 19th.
It's the end of the public hearing,
Yeah.
at the close of the hearing on the 19th. Well, we wouldn't do that, Mr. Jenks.
Does anybody else want to look at this? And then otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to accept those two parts of the request.
I would just comment that I know it's my own schedule, but if our engineer's work comes in on the 7th, on the 6th, let's assume it's the end of the day as it usually is. That leaves me at the most 3 days And that's coming back from a week away and pretty much assuming I have nothing else to do. I don't know that that helps me very much. Have you seen that? All I can do is try.
I think that's what we've committed to, Mr. Jenks, that the board will, as we do with all site plans, try to get them resolved in the proper manner, efficiently, professionally. Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board continue the public hearing for Park Place Central site plan review to September 19th, 2016 at 8:15 p.m.
Motion's been made to continue the public hearing based on the request by the proponent to September 19th at 8:15 p.m. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board extend the time to reach a decision on the Park Central site plan review for September 19th, 2016, with the anticipation we will request the consultant's comments by September 6th, 2016, to get it back in time for the applicant to be ready for the meeting on the 19th.
Motion's been made to continue the approval period to September 19th, 2016.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the approval isn't really subject to,
Correct.
so do we want to leave that saying that? Well, it says on there, subject to,
I think Mr. Catanzaro cleared that up, that it was with the understanding that the planning board would, not go to sleep and actually try to stay tuned in and keep the information flowing, keep updating, getting updates from the consultant, so that we don't find out at the last minute. We try to find out earlier if there's a problem, or we get a commitment that they'll have their comments in by a certain date. The usual things that the planning department does with any site plan and our peer review.
I understand that, but do we want the legal public record to say subject to?
I don't think that was
Did you want
in
to
my
look at
motion.
this, Aldo? Council says it's fine. I think by having on the record Mr. Catanzaro's words clarifying the subject to, it's more to get a commitment from the board to make sure things keep moving.
That's correct.
That's correct. Mr. Jenks.
It's after 8 o'clock now. Are we going to continue the public hearing on site plan review tonight?
We have a motion relative to the approval period, and then I'd like to jump to that. If I'd like to finish this, or is there a reason? We're dealing with the approval period now. Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Thank you. Now, as far as the presentation of additional information, that set of plans, Daniel, would you be kind enough to put up on the table so that, just one set's good on the table. The town planner did receive your electronic email at 7:06 PM tonight, just right there. So we did receive it electronically in the planning department at 7:06, even though we were in here in the room, and we saw you carry, did you say 8 sets? Is it just the plans? There's no attachments?
Attachment was emailed.
So there's additional info on the electronic? Okay. I think yes.
I haven't had a chance to open the email yet, so just so you know, no idea what's in there.
I'll ask the board if they want to hear any additional info tonight.
We're not gonna give it tonight.
Yeah,
You're
can I
not,
comment?
okay.
We're going to reserve, I think based on everything that we've said and heard tonight, the brief overview that we were going to present is probably just more a waste of time than a help. So we are going to withdraw our suggestion that we would make a brief presentation so that the board can get on with other business.
Even though it took us almost an hour, the only action that the board took tonight was to address the proponent's request for a continued hearing with no action tonight and and an extension of the approval period. A lot of discussion, but essentially that's all we did. None of the merits of the project were really gone into or discussed. The reason I'm saying this is that I feel that as a result of that, then it would be established that Mr. Stein's absence does not count as missing one of the public hearings, since nothing substantive was done.
We won't raise that as an issue.
Hopefully it won't matter as the time comes forward, but my experience is that if proponent comes in, requests an extension, a continuation of the hearing, nothing else is addressed, then, and someone's missing, they are not declared as having missed anything.
And I concur with that, but again, I'm not, we would not raise the issue. I don't believe anything substantive was discussed today that would disqualify him from resuming his seat in a substantive manner.
With zero missed, that's the thing. We want to make sure that,
We're not going to raise that he's not here tonight.
Okay.
As an issue.
very good. So with that, we'll see you on the 19th, and hopefully be in communication with you, having the town planner enter into discussions with Fuss and O'Neill as far as their progress, and we'll try to update you and the public relative to when we might be getting their comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, okay. Next item on the agenda is a bond release for Thayer Lane. I'll ask we have a letter here dated today from Fuss and O'Neill regarding Thayer Lane bond release.
Did you see it?
On July 12th, 2016, Fuss and O'Neill conducted a site inspection of Thayer Lane Road in order to determine the condition of the site. Observations were made during the site visit, and concerns were outlined in a letter dated July 18th, 2016. On July 19th, the owner, Capital Group Properties, performed the requested repairs to address our concerns. We reviewed the revised repairs with Southborough DPW, and they indicated the repairs were made to their satisfaction. Overall, Fuss and O'Neill is satisfied with the repairs performed, and we recommend the planning board release the bond for Thayer Lane. Should you have any questions or require any additional information, please contact the undersigned, and that's Amy Bell and Dan Delaney from Fuss and O'Neill. Oh, this is an email from our DPW director. Hi, Hillary and Joe, I just visited Thayer Lane. This is dated Friday, July 22nd. I think the concrete between the granite is fine. The crack seal also looks good. I don't have any issues with the road. It just has normal wear and tear. I'm still okay with releasing the bond. Thanks, Karen Galligan, DPW Superintendent. What's the bond amount?
20,000 and change.
And has the year passed for the 10%? So your request is to release the whole bond?
Correct.
Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we release the Thayer Lane bond in its entirety, based on the comments from Preston O'Neill and the DPW director.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion, Main Street reconstruction project. We have our DPW director here. Evening, Karen. Sure, yeah. So I have to
I've left you.
So we're still on, okay. Good evening, Ms. Galligan. Welcome back to the planning board. You're on.
Okay, so the Main Street project, I wanted to just take a minute. We have some members of the planning board who are the same, we have some that are different, and we obviously have a new planner.
John, can you get the light up front here?
So I wanted to go
Better.
through quickly the project, and what I'm looking to do is, in the past, the planning board has supported this project. Wanted to, restate what the project is, what we're trying to achieve, and then hopefully the board will continue to support it, and on our special town meeting, October 4th, we'll support the project going forward by supporting the article, which is for the selectmen to be authorized to but negotiate easements. So this is mostly a frequently asked questions. The Main Street project, it's a roadway project. We're trying to basically address the issues with the roadway, the pavement infrastructure, safety issues with the sidewalks, and it goes the length from Sears Road to Park Street. People keep asking, why do we stop at Park Street? The intention is to continue the project beyond that, but it won't be through the same funding mechanism. We can get into that a little bit later. Obviously, we have a poor subsurface on Main Street. This is one of the biggest issues, which is why the project is so expensive. It's at failure, properly repairing the road where we're doing a 20 inches of material between, it's a reclaim, it's remove, it's regrade, put in some good material where it's bad. So we end up with 8 inches of asphalt, 12 inches of new gravel underneath. If you look Existing pavement, what we have right now, we've between 1.5 and 8 inches of asphalt. Where average is 5. Where we have 8 inches is really where we've done all that patching down by Parkerville Road. We've done some up, well, we've actually added quite a bit up by the old medical building at Hallisey's. It's basically a silty sand underneath, and it's obviously not holding up. So that's what pavement failure looks like. You can see the ruts in the road from, it's alligator cracking, there's ruts, the tire tracks, tire marks. It's hard to actually see the 3D of it, but what we're putting in is 8 inches of asphalt, 4 inches of dense graded crushed stone, which is very significant on a road with as much traffic as we have. That's an important piece for the strength of the road, and then 8 inches of gravel. Drainage, without good drainage, any work on the subbase is kind of useless. We do have some drainage issues. We're not obviously not meeting our stormwater requirements under the new stormwater permits, but also it's, we're not draining it well, so therefore we're creating our own problems. The grading, if you look in the picture, the more top picture, you can see how the crown of the road is actually higher than that stone wall, and the sidewalk is below grade, below the road grade, so we don't even have any drainage in this area, so all the water runs off into that sidewalk. By regrading that piece of roadway, we actually have to lower our water main a little bit in that area, so there's significant work that has to be done just to get the road back into the shape that it needs to be in. Intersections, we're narrowing them for the better pedestrians to cross. Sightline at Middle Road intersections being improved. We're adding turning lanes at 85 and 30. If anybody's ever gotten stuck behind someone trying to make a left, they tend to try to, you're in the middle of the intersection and you end up making your left after the light turns red, and the guy behind you sometimes will scoot out too. Sidewalks are going to be better defined with curbing, so people won't be parking on them, or and you really wouldn't want to travel on them because they'll have a granite curb. And there's a 4-foot shoulder, so there's a buffer between the travel lane and the sidewalk. It also makes it safe for bicycles. Project's been going on for at least 16 years. Back in 1999, the road was pretty much in failure. We started setting aside Chapter 90. We had a preliminary design. A lot of the planning board was here for that, but not everybody. We went through the process of bringing it around to the different commissions and committees and boards. We coordinated meetings with residents and all the different committees to come up with a 25% design. The 25% design was rejected. We got back into it. We had a new consultant. We had a better survey done. So 2010, we had meetings with the selectmen to try to come up with, and the planning board, to come up with alternatives at the common, because there was a lot of issues about moving stone wall. If anyone on the planning board was here at the time and they remembered the option that was decided was that we'd basically split the middle and take a little bit of land from the common, which is actually part of the right-of-way, take some easements on the south side of the road from the private properties in order to get some parking in there for the businesses, and also to get the sidewalk in. 2012, we had, we got funded through the Federal Transportation Improvement Program. Came up with a Main Street Design Working Group, et cetera, et cetera. We've got 75% design plans. And then now we're at the point where town meeting did not give selectmen the authority to negotiate the easements. If we don't get the authority at this town meeting, we'll be removed from the TIP. So actually, I need to change that slide to say that it's October 4th is the date the selectmen did determine that they want to give this another shot. So what's it going to cost Southborough? At this point, the project costs nothing for the town. We're paying for the design through Chapter 90, which is reimbursed through the state. And then TIP funding is federal and state programs. Right now, it's $7.2 million because we're listed on federal fiscal year 18. We were on 17, so it was 6.8, but it did go up. So $7.2 million is what's been put aside for this project by state and federal funding through air quality funding, alternative transportation money, and also some other state and federal money. set aside for road work. DOT does have to approve the project. It's not, people kind of been calling it a federal highway. It's not a federal highway, it's just being funded through federal highway and state highway funding. It does meet safety standards and directives that are required by the state in order for safe use of the roadway and using their money. Our master plan back in '08, and actually the one prior to that, which I want to say might have been in '98 or '93, I can't remember which year in the '90s, but the town was interested in having more sidewalks, more multimodal roadway use, and this project actually kind of spun out of that. And then in 2008, the new master plan, then instead of us working from the master plan said, oh, and this Main Street project is going to do what we're asking, which is have more sidewalks and make it a more walkable downtown. It's not a federal highway, just like I said, federal standards and state standards, which are in use throughout town. We all have all the standards, from the yellow lines down the middle of the road, the white lines on the edges, red stop signs, yellow caution signs, all that, 5-foot sidewalks so that it's American Disabilities Act compliant. That's all state and federal standards that we follow anyway. Having a T intersection, you have to stop if you're on the short leg. That's a standard that's throughout the United States. The proposed travelway is 22 feet, 2 11-foot widths. That's currently what we have out there. We're striped to 11-foot widths throughout the town. The 4-foot shoulder in some spots, that's where there's a little bit larger. If you see that we currently run from 30 to 38 feet wide, except in the more narrow spot right at Sears Road where we're 25. So we're gonna have a 30-foot roadway width through this project, except where there's parking right at the common. Town's gonna use Chapter 90 to pay for the easements, and in order to do easements, the selectmen can negotiate the easements, but first an appraisal has to be done, and then there's a review appraisal done. The selectmen take that to the property owners, and then there's a negotiation that happens, and Chapter 90 money can be used for the appraisal, the review appraisal, and the purchase of the easement. The project improves 85 and 30 with 10-foot wide left turn lanes. They're not 11 there. New traffic lights, which are actually going to be more of an on-demand, which is not what we have now. Our lights are very old, and they'll be black traffic lights, not the galvanized. But that's just, more walk lanes on all 4 crossings, on all 4 legs of it. New sidewalks, we're gonna have, from Parkville to Sears Road, we don't have currently sidewalks, and we will have them then. We're gonna go from the Fay Crosswalk up Common Street to the Townhouse, and then east side of Corderville Road, from Main Street down to the Woodward driveway. There's gonna be a sidewalk now. Schools are very interested in that one. And then on Marlborough Road to the Northern Library driveway, so on the west side of Marlborough Road, we're going to put in a sidewalk, hopefully with the intent that, as a sidewalk committee, come up with Marlborough Road's one of the primary roads to put in a sidewalk ultimately throughout town. Throughout the length. It's not a bike lane through town, it's really just a shoulder that provides an area for the bikes, and it also provides a cushion for pedestrians, unlike the sidewalks like on Corderville Road, where they're right up against the fog line. So this gives us a 4-foot shoulder. Downtown, we will pave it. We are gonna do some work there, and any amenities we have will continue through, so it will look the same. The problem is that the buildings are a little bit on the right of way there, so we can't do inappropriate for federal standards and state standards for having your door open and people be parked on the side of the road. So one of the reasons is we have some interest, obviously, in this is $7.2 million that gets spent on this. The town's not spending, and we can use in the public safety building. We need to do work on Corderville Road. A new community center has been talked about, library addition has been talked about, and any other, obviously, road projects that do come up. But this 7.2 million would be earmarked for Main Street. And if we wanted to do any special amenities on the road, we can do that with our own money. And then we can actually add to and improve the project rather than just have it be just the roadway project. What does it look like? This is a picture near 84 Main. It's just a rendering of the difference. So you can see it's actually the road gets a little narrower here. Here's that middle road, and that's actually, I need to update that picture. If you look at, there's gonna be boards at the library. If you go and you look at the boards at the library, that'll show, the middle road is gonna be a little different. This is looking kind of from the fire station at the 85 and 30 intersection. This is, right near the Woodward School crossing on Main Street. And, then these are other towns that have a very similar cross-section. This is 211s, 2 4-foot shoulders, and a sidewalk with grass strip. This doesn't have the grass strip. Same thing, 211s, 2 4s, and a 5-foot sidewalk. That was Farm Road. The other one was Washington Street in Hudson. This is Farm Road also. This is actually Summer Street in Medway. And that is Summer Street in Medway also. Special town meeting, vote to give the selectmen authority to give these easements, to get the easements, that's October 4th. And it's to get the easements, it's a negotiation, although the wording does say you can take by eminent domain, and I think that did scare a lot of people off. The intention is never to do it that way. There's, out of the permanent easements that we have for roadways and sidewalks, a good portion out of, I think there's a total of 38 different, sorry, I'm gonna give you the exact number so I don't screw it up. There are 38 residences and 7 businesses, and then there's 7 nonprofits. And out of that, we've spoken to 22 of them, 6 people we haven't managed to get a hold of. We've only managed to leave messages for. 3 are LLCs we haven't managed to talk to. And then we've talked to all the nonprofits. So that's where we stand right now with this. Most of the easements are temporary, which if anybody was on a road that we paved this year, you'll know what that is where we come through and then we put loam in and we seed it. With this project, they actually go off the right-of-way into your property a little bit because we want to keep, we're changing grades, putting a sidewalk in actually raises the sidewalk about 6 inches with the curbing. So by doing that, we don't want there to be like a cliff on the edge of the sidewalk. We want your lawn to roll up to it. A couple of things that we thought was, or that I've spoken to some of the opponents of the project, and some people are looking for very little change. If we could, the less we can change it, the better they would like it. People say they want to keep it quaint. You know, whatever it is that makes people want to live in Southborough is what they'd like to see there. And these are things that I would love for the planning board to help with, and I know Historic is interested in helping with. Historic's mentioned that, geez, there used to be all elms down the road. I can't force people to take an elm tree as part of their easement, but some of them might be willing. Whether we wanted to say, since Southborough's fences of stone, if we wanted to put balanced stone walls, we wanted to see if people were interested in having that, in period lighting or any of that. That's something that, that type of work can all be dealt with after, obviously, after the October 4th meeting, but between the 75% and the final design phase. That's the part that makes the project our project versus just being a roadway project. I think it's important for everybody to kind of come together and decide what we really want the town to look like. A couple of things that I know a lot of people complain about is that corner at Newton Street and Main Street. And I don't know if anybody's really ever talked about anything, but, you know, I don't know if the town can, I know there's issues with whether it's contaminated or not, but if the town could do anything like even lease it for a farmer's market on Sundays, close, you know, just give reason for people to want to be walking around and try to revitalize a little bit the downtown. I don't know where that would all stem from. Hopefully, the planning board or someone would take lead in something like that, but having some green space down in that downtown would be wonderful, because we really don't have any. And just, there's some things that could be done, and the town would have to pay for those things, but they could pay for them as above and beyond the $7.2 million for just road work, which is kind of unsexy work. And let's just get that paid for by somebody else, and let's do the things that make it look nice and make it be something that makes Southborough our town. So that's kind of in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, and actually if any of the public has questions, please come give me a call at the DPW. Happy to answer anything. Like I said, we're going to have information up at the library, the boards for people to look at. Happy to explain what easements are and how that all works too. I know the planning board would know that, but a lot of residents might not. Thank you.
Don't go away. No, let's leave it on, because some of the questions, you might have to flash it back. I'll open it up to the board members to ask questions or make comments, and then we'll open it up to the public. So if that's what is that the way you want to do it, Karen?
Whatever you would like.
Mr. Mills?
Oh, lucky me. Thank you, Karen, appreciate it. It's nice to see what the plan is for Main Street. My question, I guess I'm confused. I thought at the last town meeting, the vote was the same about having the selectmen go into negotiations for easements and taking of land, and that was denied. So if that was correct, and I thought we had to wait a couple of years before, no, we can come right back again? Okay, I see town council's head nodding. That would be great, I guess. I appreciate you being here.
No, that concept only relates to certain types of zoning relief. There is no prohibition to have this brought back before the town meeting at any time. So there's a general misconception that some action taken at some level, town meeting or administrative, and you can't look at it again for 2 years. And again, that's primarily zoning relief, a variance under statute. The selectmen are free to bring that back anytime they choose in the public interest.
So then with that, I guess the old Main Street project team, have they looked at this? Are they back in session? Have they given you comments? I'm curious what they've said.
The working group is still together. They have a subgroup that was put together, or 3 of them, to try to determine what the alternate plan would be, because that is an issue. If people don't want this project, something still obviously has to be done, the road's a failure, and what that project would be. We haven't gotten very far with it, unfortunately. The meeting has been sporadic because of the months. So I believe that we should be getting together in the next week or 2, and at that point, come up with a plan that then we could say, well, these are the things that would happen, and these are what wouldn't happen if we did it ourselves, and this is what the cost would be. And I know a lot of people are interested in seeing what that would be. It would. I don't want to just not take care of the sub-base issues for the road. So a lot of that, like drainage and the sub-base, would be done as much as we could without taking easements, because that seems to be one of the biggest issues, is people don't want us to take the easements if we can avoid it.
I seem to recall different from town meeting, but
The easement question is another article that's coming up at town meeting, which was a citizen's petition to direct the road to be paved, but without any easements. So that was kind of where we were taking the directive from.
okay. My recollection was there was a large contingent that was adamant that we keep the town character of the road the way it was, and just repave it and manage it ourselves instead of having it meet federal highway or federal guidelines. So I just, has that group given you any comments, or whoever?
Yes, and that was, I did talk to at least the two of the people, but who actually were more on the less easements, and like I said, keep it as similar as it can be and keep it quaint. And like I said, a lot of the project, I mean, there's no significant widening happening. It averages about 11 inches throughout the whole length of the project. It's just in a couple spots, like at Sears where it's very narrow, where some changes happen. And then we're adding a sidewalk there, so that obviously changes some things. I mean, we obviously have to go through Concom, and there's some filings because we are adding a sidewalk. And there's obviously some wetlands down in that area, down by Sears. But yes, at town meeting, so we had a bunch of people afterwards who said, oh, I thought that project didn't need any votes. We thought we were all set and thought it was going. So a lot of people are very interested in getting some sidewalks that are actually defined. So that's something, and that I believe is significant to changing what would happen. Now, the intersection, I don't know if that was one of the bigger complaints, and that's one thing that would be hard to do without easements. We really couldn't do that. So it would have to stay the same.
And isn't part of the challenge going up to East Main to continue through past Park Street, the fact the railroad, isn't that a challenge for the project as well?
Yes, but we can start and stop on either side of the railroad, which is what we've kind of been doing for years. We do the same thing on Central Street.
Okay. No further questions at this time.
Mr. Jenks?
What's the status around the common? What's the plan look like there, both the north side and the south side?
So the north side, the front of the stone wall, so it is going to be moved. Stone wall at the common will be moved, but the front is going to be where the back of the stone wall currently is, so it's about a 2-foot move.
Well, let me make sure I've got my north and south correctly. Up the hill, the higher area, going up past the library up to Town Hall, is that north?
Yes, yes, so the town hall's north of so, I actually have a board, if you don't mind, I'll go grab it if you don't mind. So what's happening is that we're adding, right here, this is adding to the common. Common Street becomes one way, just going up the hill, not going down.
Karen,
We add
you
this
need a
sidewalk.
microphone.
Sorry. Oh,
Start all over again.
I forgot all about that.
I think it started with-
Sorry.
I think you started with what we are doing.
Yes, so the common, this piece right here is on the north piece is adding to the common. This black line is the current line. This is what's adding in, because Common Street's becoming one way from the library up to the town hall on the east side of Common Street. This piece of Common Street stays the same. The crossings, we have some real actual crossings up here, which there aren't currently. There's a sidewalk. This is additional sidewalk that's new as part of the project, going up from Fay School up to the town hall. The stone wall, which is currently at the edge of this green line, moves back 2 feet. So the new face of the stone wall is the old back of the stone wall. And there's a curbing that's put there so that it's basically so that the stone wall, the obstruction's not directly on the road. You have a 2-foot buffer so that you might hit the stone wall, but your tires will also hit the curbing. On the south side, we have the sidewalk, which currently people can park on, and it's flat to the road. There is curbing over here already. Fay School had put it in, but so over here we have there is some easements, permanent easements, in order to accommodate this parking right here, and then this is just striped so that people don't park in these areas, so that you can come out of Middle Road and actually see both ways. So there'll be no parking here. except during a funeral when there's actually a police presence to give traffic. And then we also have parking over in this section. So there's a permanent easement here and here in order to accommodate that sidewalk and the parking. And the other significant change is that right now, here, you just kind of zoom up Common Street. Here, we're actually, you come through the intersection, and you have to make an actual right turn, not just a bare right. And there's a new green space added here, but the tip of this, of the common is basically that green space is moved to here, and it doesn't affect this monument at all, but it does now make it so that it's ADA accessible to the monuments, and actually to this monument too, which we currently don't have.
What is the net gain or loss of parking spaces?
Since technically people are parking on the sidewalk, there's not really technically any parking spots. However, there is based on the way people do park, and really they do park right through that intersection in front of the library. There is probably a loss of about 9 spaces. We are working with. We're working to talk to St. Mark's to look at extending the library lot, because they have a grass lot there, and seeing if we can do something with that, and to make some walkways so that it's also for Pilgrim Church to be able to get up, because next to the old cemetery, there's a good spot that we could have something like that. And then a better walkway from the library parking lot over to Main Street.
The now are to be one-way going up the hill. What is the width of the pavement now, and what will it be?
So where there is like a breakout where there's parking, and that's the same width as it is now. So it narrows up at the end, and I want to say I think it's 16 feet where it's one way with no parking, and then where there is parking, there's I want to say we're at 22 currently, and that's what it still is.
You gave a number of easements that the town would be requesting at 30-something is?
It's 38 properties,
Yeah.
but actually overall, there's between temporary and permanent, there's 122 easements, but 67 of those are temporary.
Of the permanent easements, I assume you have to get all of them to make this work.
Yes.
So if you can negotiate 3/4 of them, does that mean the town would take the last 25%?
A lot of them are like 70 square feet or 20 square feet, so there might be a way to work around them if we had to. If it's a more significant easement, we might have to go into the eminent domain issue. Thank you. The only, out of pretty much everyone we've spoken to, but like I said, there were 6 that I haven't been able to get a hold of. There were six that I haven't heard from, but everybody else understood the process, understood what was happening, and were on board with the idea, so,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Mrs. Luttrell.
So, at the special town meeting, what are you asking different than what was asked in April?
Nothing different. It's really the exact same article. Nothing's changed.
So we're just asking again, because,
A lot of residents, after the town meeting happened and they found out that the project wasn't gonna go forward, said, oh geez, we didn't understand. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to get to a lot of boards and committees, so that people know that the vote actually makes or breaks the project, which it's fine if if the town doesn't want the project, the town doesn't want the project, that's not the issue. It's just as long as people are informed. And a lot of people felt that they didn't have the information, they didn't know that the vote was coming and that the vote was significant and what it even meant. So even people there who were for the project didn't necessarily realize that the project would stop if we didn't get the easements. So there was enough of a request to the selectmen that the selectmen felt it was necessary to bring it back.
So citizens petitioned the selectmen to bring back
Yes.
this question?
Yeah, they got, not like in a citizen's petition per se, but as a bunch of letters and emails and calls about it. So that's why they brought it back, or are bringing it back.
Mr. Jenks?
At the end of the day, goes forward, it's all done. What's the impact on the town's budget?
As it currently sits, there's no impact.
So everything gets done without anything out of our pocket.
Correct.
How real do you think that is?
According to the DOT project manager, because a lot of people were concerned about overages, because the DOT will take a certain responsibility for a certain amount, but the project manager hasn't had any issues where the projects have gone over and it hasn't been funded through DOT. It would have to be something where we decided we wanted to change something drastically and say suddenly, oh, we're going to put in all brick on the sidewalks, or all pavers or something that wasn't in the plan. That would be something that the DOT would then say, yeah, that's not us. So, or if we decided to suddenly pave all of Middle Road for some reason, because I just paved it recently, that would be something that they would say, well, that's really not part of the project.
Is in the sequencing of the work, is there something at the end where the town could say, this is out of control, let's not do this last piece?
We can set it up, the sequence, however we want to. That piece of the spec hasn't been done. So yes, it would be possible to do that. Basically, I mean, obviously the the infrastructure goes in first, and then you'd be at the point that you'd be at pavement by the time you'd really see an issue where you said, oh, okay. I mean, you might know that your excavation cost extra. There was a lot more to pull out than we thought. And even at that, that doesn't mean that the DOT wouldn't pay for it, because that's an unforeseen.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mills?
So to piggyback on what Mr. Jenks said, so I think at town meeting, I also recall someone stating that if we just continue with the road and maintain it as the town, it won't impact us either, because we have in the budget just maintaining roads. So can you explain if this does get shelved and the onus then goes back to you and your department to maintain the road, what the additional cost is going to be beyond just paving? Because it sounded like there was going to be required changes. Is that true, or is that false?
So this is where the second version of a plan comes in, of what would we do and what, because you wouldn't, I mean, you can see with the places where we have overlaid how it's all cracked and a problem already. So we obviously wouldn't just overlay. Even actually the state road where they planed and overlaid, they have some cracks coming in already. So we don't, it's generally not an investment that the DPW would make an investment of the town's money to do that at this point. So we would want to do the sub-base and, at least fix what we can. And we would want to put in the curbing and put in a good sidewalk at a minimum. So originally, I had given someone a number for that work, but that didn't include really working the sub-base. At the time, I thought we could just, I thought there was a decent base under there, and maybe we just had to find it. But DOT came back and said, it's not good. You really need to actually fix it. For 10,000 cars a day, you need a lot more structure to it. And if anyone was here when they were paving 85 in Hopkinton, they used that big 2-inch, kind of with just some asphalt mix in it, and that holds up great and over there, and that's basically what they're looking at doing. And when we eventually do Corderville Road, that was what we'd be doing. I mean, Southville Road has that, and they're at like 7,000 cars a day, and that holds up much better.
So is there an estimated cost if we handle it ourselves?
We know it's over 2 million, but I don't have an actual number, because it's what are we gonna do exactly? Like, are we gonna fix the grade so that the sidewalk isn't below grade and isn't catching the water? Depending on exactly what the project is, depends obviously on what the cost is. So we're trying to come up with what would be a reasonable cost for the town to take, which is gonna give us a good investment for our money.
I would just recommend that you have that in your back pocket for town meeting.
Yes, we plan on having it, they just haven't met, like I said. The Main Street Working Group's working on that.
Don, if I could,
We have a selectman in the room. Mr. Shea, good evening.
thank you very much. Brian Shea, 17 Pinecone Lane, on the Board of Selectmen, also on the Main Street Design Working Group. And, with respect to, what is it gonna cost if we do it on our own, if we do it some other way? That's a question that the Main Street Design Working Group will be undertaking as part of the presentation, part of our upcoming work. And it will definitely be a part of the presentation to town meeting on October 4th at the special town meeting. I think it's premature now to throw any numbers out as to what that may involve. We have our next meeting set up, I believe, for the last week in August. It's been difficult to get everybody together because of vacation conflicts. I believe it's set up for August 25th. That we can get, that final date out to everybody. But, at that next meeting of the Main Street Design Working Group, we will, discuss, that very question. An alternate project, how much is it going to cost? And that information will be presented. And, just as a follow-up, I don't think that this project is not unlike so many other controversial projects and issues that have been brought before the voters in town. Algonquin Regional High School had many votes before, and many attempts at passing articles at town meetings before that was undertaken. Trotter Middle School had many town meetings involved. Woodward School had many town meetings involved. It's just not uncommon for projects, issues with high price tags that, have a lot of controversy to take multiple times through town meeting, and this project is another one of those. There was a lot of feedback that we did get following the April town meeting, that many people were unaware that, not passing the article to allow the Board of Selectmen to negotiate easements would have this project stop in its tracks. So we did receive a lot of feedback on that. There's obviously a lot of people that, felt that the process was fair in April, and I'm sure that there'll be a good number of people that will come out at the special town meeting and vote in opposition to this project as well. I think we, in all honesty, have an uphill battle. I think that it is a battle that it is worth fighting. I think at the end of the day, having an accessible, walkable, bikeable downtown is in the town's best interests. It would be our hope that if you continue to follow the work of the Main Street Design Working Group, if there are other questions that you have, we attend those meetings, ask those questions. At the end of the day, the Planning Board is one of the boards that I know the Board of Selectmen would be very hopeful that we can turn to you at the special town meeting and receive your support for this project. So I will leave that there for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. I had a question, Karen, and then I'll go to Sam. You said there were these plans are at the library?
Yes, I have these boards I'm going to bring over and have them up at the library, kind of as their own presentation, so that people can look at them at their leisure and then call if they have any questions.
How many are there?
There's 7 boards.
Okay. I know that you or others put up downstairs here in the lobby, in the hallway, a big map that showed, and there was that was up there for quite a while. And there were people that were looking at it and saying, well, this is different than what was, the last meeting I went to that was approved by the selectmen, or this is different than what was submitted to the tip. So I know multiple people that I've talked to were confused or upset that the plan had changed, or the plan that they were looking at was different than the last time they saw a plan. So my question is, the 7 plans that'll be in the library is the current, latest version of the engineering drawings that is on the tip?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Stivers.
Thank you. My name is Sam Stivers, live at 7 Presidential Drive, a member of the advisory committee, but speaking as an individual citizen. Comment and a couple of questions. To Mr. Mills's point, John Butler, Steve Phillips, and I sponsored a citizens petition for a warrant article that basically said, let's do no easements, let's move forward with the town money, and basically ratify the vote at the April town meeting, because we felt that the town meeting spoke very clearly and that it was not worth wasting additional time, resources, et cetera, to move forward with the original project again. So that article is actually on the warrant. The signatures have been verified, and it has been delivered to the selectman's office, just to clarify that. As Ms. Galligan mentioned, she reached out to the 3 of us a month or 2 ago, I guess now, and said, can we sit down and talk about it? Can I provide additional information to help you rethink that opposition, if you will, to the original proposal? And we appreciated that, and I know I did, I know Mr. Butler did. I'm not sure if Mr. Phillips met with Ms. Galligan. But my understanding of the process at that point was that there was going to be another alternate proposal coming out of the Main Street Design Working Committee for a lower cost, less intrusive, if you will, fewer easements project. And I'm curious, is that alternate proposal now recorded on paper, drawings, et cetera, that people can look at it? Because one of my questions was, I can't make a commitment in terms of how I'm going to vote until I see what the proposals are. And if there is an alternate, I'm interested. I'll certainly look at it with an open mind and try to figure out what I think about it at that point, but I've not seen that. I also, a couple of weeks ago, I heard that there was a subcommittee of the Main Street Design Working Committee meeting. I raised the issue at the selectmen's meeting, saying that I think it's very clear that those meetings should have been posted, and apparently they weren't posted, because I personally was interested. I know others are interested in hearing how that process is going. And Mr. Rooney at that time said he agreed that they should have been posted and that they would be posted from that point on. So have there been other meetings since then of the
No,
subcommittee?
that was what Mr. Shea was talking about, that we haven't been able to get everybody
Okay,
together.
so that's the same group, the
Well,
subcommittee
so
for
the
August 25th.
The subcommittee and the regular group haven't been able to meet, so we've,
Okay.
and because I don't know if, I'm not sure if the whole group as a whole is going to work on it at this point, because we are getting short on time.
Right. So is there an alternate proposal that's going to come before town meeting, or are we going to see exactly the same proposal we saw in April?
There will be, the plan for the Main Street Working Group plans on having something that says, okay, and this is what you'd get, and this is what we get otherwise, like kind of a comparison, but there won't be an article to fund the second plan, because it's not gonna be fully designed. It'll be more of a conceptual plan of
Okay.
of what changes would be, and then, in a ballpark figure on what the cost would be, which then would have to go into some kind of design if the
So-
meeting didn't.
So there'll be one warrant article for the project, And that warrant article will essentially look like the warrant article from April?
Yes, I think it's almost it'll be the exact article.
Okay,
And then there'll be the only other article will be that citizens petition
okay,
article, and then should it fail, then spring town meeting will be ready with a design set and an actual cost.
okay. Are there plans to do additional information sessions for the public and bring back the large set of plans that were just described that were downstairs here and that I saw at some of the working groups, because I thought those were helpful to describe what was going on?
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna have display at the library with some frequently asked question sheets and stuff. And then we'll also have them obviously at the meetings with the Main Street, with the Main Street and group. And then I think to Mr. Morris's comment that it might be worth having another set that's not on the boards that we could stick to the wall downstairs. Facilities didn't like that I did that, but that's okay. It's worth doing.
But
so
are
people
those
can see
plans
it.
going to be the same ones that were displayed previously, to the point
They're-
that people
they're
felt that
slightly
there were some
different.
differences?
They
Okay,
are slightly different. I have, the renderings are on them, kind of an example, like this is an example here. You can see that there's a picture of what the tree would be. There's a picture of this is what this means. It's a lot more annotated so that when you look at it up close, you can understand what the plan says, because I did find that a lot of
Okay.
people had questions. When I was up at the transfer station with the plans one time, people really didn't understand what each of the lines were and stuff, so I tried to call it out a little better
okay.
and give some more graphics so people understood it better.
But again, clarifications as opposed to substantive changes to the plan?
Correct, correct.
Okay, okay. Okay, interesting then, because I guess one of my expectations from our conversation and earlier comments I'd heard from others was that we were going to see another version of the proposal in the form of a warrant article. So if in fact the vote that's going to be in front of town meeting is essentially the same vote that we had in April, I guess I'm looking for other reasons to rethink or whatever, and that doesn't really give me much to rethink, because I still have
No,
some
and
same
so, and that's
concerns about
basically
look and
kind
feel.
of what the problem is that to come up with a whole design and have a dual design is something that, we thought that it would be better to have a conceptual plan, an
Okay.
idea prior to the meeting. Like, we do wanna have that done prior to, so we can discuss it and people can see it, and we'll have some public meetings on both with the information. However, it won't be a full design that we're ready to, we would be ready to fund it special.
When do you think that's likely to be available for the public to see?
Unfortunately, they put the special very early in October, but my belief would be that we should have something, we'll probably have meetings the second and third week of September with both plans, with both sets, just to kind of give an example. And my intention was to go out with the Southborough Access Media and kind of walk it and explain what the differences would be also.
Okay.
We were hoping we'd already have it done. Unfortunately, they just
yeah,
haven't been able to
okay.
meet.
Well, I guess I'm disappointed that we don't have another, I guess, more tangible alternative, so I'm still sort of back where I was in April in terms of thinking through it, so thank you.
I'll open up to the public. Yes, sir.
Hi, Howard Rose, 2 Bantry. I've made this statement several times in front of the Board of Selectmen as well. I was shocked, now I'm angered, not at this board. I don't understand the legal reason why we have a town meeting if the town spoke, the town clearly had a decision made, and the Board of Selectmen can just go, oh, we didn't believe you and we don't like that, so we're gonna do it again. That's not democracy, that's what we're all about. Ms. Galligan, I disagree highly with what some of your statements. Mr. Mills and I have similar recollections about what was said at town meeting. It wasn't about the easements. Many people stood up and talked about the parts you're not talking about. The studies that say if you widen a road by 6 inches, the speeds go up by 11 miles per hour. Why you're not widening the lanes, by widening the striping and putting those lanes in, you're widening it. This is clearly a project where the state is looking to widen this to make it more accessible. Has a study been done about any of the side roads, Flag Road, Sears Road, and everything, and the additional traffic that's going to come from people avoiding Route 9 to use us as a cut through? They already do it, and the traffic actually works as a traffic calming measure to keep it calm going through there. And that's what people voted and said they liked. There were people who clearly said that they like it going slower. So to approve this, it's more than the $7.2 million, which this is really about. Yes, we are going to have to pay for it. The state does not have to pay for this, but we want our town. There's no benefit. If we were getting a town where there was parking and there were street and there were stores and we're getting some commerce out of it, the only thing we're getting out of this project is more traffic, which we already have enough of. We're already fighting that with this other project we talked about tonight, which leads right into this. No one studied how that goes together as far as I know, and if there's anyone from that planning board, I haven't been up to date on this one yet. You need to study how the traffic affects all the other roads. The state, of course, is willing to do this because they're looking to take any traffic off of Route 9 they can. We are more than a traffic stop and a traffic alleviation program for the state. We like our small roads. This is what was stated at the town meeting. It was clear why we even have the audacity to go against our own residents. We're not ignorant people. We studied this from your timeline. This has been going on for a very long time. People were clear. The attendance of that meeting was higher than most meetings, in fact. People came out clearly just to knock this project out. They knew what they were doing. Once again, I asked the town, the Board of Selectmen, consider what the town has already voted on, move on, put forward a project paid for by us at a smaller repaving, restructuring on our own. Don't worry about the state money anymore and do what the people that have elected you asked us to do. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Ms. Galligan, I appreciate you coming here tonight. You and I ran into each other in the hall downstairs like a month or so ago, and you indicated that you wanted to come and get on the planning board agenda, and that's what we did. We put you on the agenda so that you could make this presentation and provide this information so that people have this info now, and they'll do with it what they want between now and October 4th. If there's nothing else, I want to move on to the next agenda item. But before that, I'd like to personally thank you for the very respectful public display from the DPW respecting Callie Morrow and you know, the day of his funeral. It was excellent.
Yeah, it's a piece of fabric of the town that you won't get back. That's the real character of the town.
Right.
So
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll see you
very much
around.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion. Park Central Draft Environmental Impact Report. There's a copy of it right here, if anybody wants to look at it. And also a legal opinion that the planning board requested and received from town council. We've all, I see most of the people here have been at many of the meetings, the ZBA meetings, selectmen meetings, and some of the planning board meetings. And we've seen that some of the comments or the flavor of the meeting has not been that pleasant. But this is the planning board, and we try to treat everyone with respect and use some decorum. We have town council here. He's well respected. We have heard many of the neighbors' comments relative to the merits of the project. We're going to try to focus here on the town council's legal opinion that he provided, the additional questions that the planning board submitted to council, and then he's agreed to you know, let the forum be open to the public. So rather than you know, address things like the traffic or some of the technical merits of the project, it's more of a taking advantage of council's knowledge of the 40B process, knowledge of how the different boards are supposed to interact, and of course, knowledge of the law. So, did you want to go first, council?
As opposed to?
You have the questions.
I have the questions, and I'll be glad to start if you wish for
Sure.
me to start.
Okay.
First, I
Good
am-
evening.
Yeah, good evening, members of the board. I am here to respond to the further questions of the planning board as a result of my very complex and comprehensive legal opinion. I don't want to get into a lot of independent questions from the audience. I understand a lot of their positions on this, and I can't say anything that would otherwise be adverse to other aspects of the government that I represent. And that's just the fundamental position that I have to have as I am the general town council. Having said that, you did submit properly a few questions back in June relative to the integrated aspect of the project, and secondly, issues relative to the so-called conditional waivers, which have become rather dramatic at the Zoning Board of Appeals level. And as a result of those primary questions, we responded in a 5-page, very detailed legal opinion that we expended quite a bit of time to do. And apparently, as a result of that opinion, we now have about a dozen more questions, which is a bit unprecedented in my experience, but be that as it may, we will be glad to try to address those for you. And if you wish for me to go through the question and the answer, or do you want to ask the question and all right. The first question is multiple. It's what provisions of Chapter 40B allow the whole site to be regulated under 40B, under the integrated site development theory? My response is, it's not the statute, it's not the regulations. More importantly, it's the case law interpreting the intent and purpose of Chapter 40B and the standards of what a use variance is. The umbrella authority for this whole thing is the use variance grant. And as far as I can determine, that grant of use variance occurred as a result of negotiations to an extent with about a dozen direct abutters, resulting also in a very comprehensive restrictive covenant agreement being agreed to and also being recorded against the property. That's about as far as you can go with resolving matters with abutters, and as a result of that, the use variance issued. And that use variance was never appealed. So by not appealing the use variance, it means that the board is determined as a matter of law, the ZBA, to have not acted in excess of their authority. That's what that means, that decision, unappealed. Note is made that my opinion does not appear to cite any regulatory provisions specifically allowing non-Chapter 40B project components to be regulated under 40B, but does cite cases where ancillary or incidental commercial uses are allowed. And that is true. There is no case, as I have cited in my opinion, there's no HAC decisions that have recognized an integrated project like Park Central. Chapter 40B never envisioned use variances as part of a planned unit development, and the reason is probably because use variances aren't permitted under Massachusetts law. They're only permitted to be in towns that have them to continue them, which I have said consistently is not a good thing to have. So hopefully that'll be corrected at a subsequent town meeting. There is a reference to the definition of project and the discussion of project containing so-called ancillary commercial or institutional and non-residential uses. My comment to that by focusing on a definition in the regulations is you can't read the definition in isolation. You have to look, as I did, to the whole intent of Chapter 40B, and again, in conjunction with the use variance grant, and that's what we did. This is a little more complicated than simply saying, show me in writing specifically where it says this in the statute. The statute doesn't address that. Show me in writing where it says it in the regs. The regs don't address it. What is addressed is case law interpreting that and then bringing together with that the intent and purpose of a use variance. Do you have any questions so far? More questions on the questions?
We're going to try to let you roll through these.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I can see people making notes, including some of the members here.
Okay.
So I think it might go smoother if you just rolled through
I'll
it.
be glad to continue.
Okay.
So then an example is given, well, you know, this quid pro quo approach of having one type of a project being a 40A, one type of the project being a 40B. What about the example where could a ZBA permit a 10-unit project with 3 affordable units plus an ancillary, the word ancillary, 100-unit project with no affordable units, both with the 40B developer benefits? Answer is no, that's an abuse of the standard. That's an exaggeration and expanse that is not permissible. It has to be, the integration project or process, yeah, you want market rate housing, you want it in a certain location, having settled it with the
the dozen abutters that signed off on the agreement, you give affordable housing in exchange for that, and that is the technical protection under 40B. Let's see, the question set 2 is, please clarify in layman's terms whether or not the planning board has legal authority to deny the project due as untenable for safety. And I presume that what that means is deny site plan approval. And I think that's part of what I had discussed with you about the approval of site plan, of the site plan process should occur unless the plan is untenable or incomplete. So if that engineered plan is showing something that is not doable based upon the engineering data, and the only way that happens is if other engineering data comes in and clashes with that and says, this doesn't work. But if it's at that level, and you say, settle this issue for us, and it can't be, and you say, then we determine that based upon what we have heard, that cannot be a tenable solution, or if they give you such an incomplete plan for consideration that you say, we make no sense of this plan, we don't know how to design it. So as a result of the inability to design it, we deny it. It's a rarity. That's the highest level, because site plan approval is expected to be a component of normal zoning relief, and it is not as cited in Chapter 40A. It's an outgrowth of special permits, and the belief that once the use permit or the use grant is given, whether it be a special permit or a variance or whatever, that the site will now be adjusted to mitigate the impact on the neighborhood through the traditional types of considerations: drainage, access, screening, buffering, lighting, and so forth. The next question is, please state in layman's terms. It's very difficult for a lawyer to state anything in layman's terms after being a lawyer for almost 40 years.
That's my fault. I appreciate this.
It's okay. I understand. Because I was a layman before I was a lawyer. But in any event, please state in layman's terms the potential consequences of a planning board denial of the project based on criteria within the scope of the full site plan review, but outside the scope of the site plan review. Well, I understand the question, because that has been a consistent question about how far can we go? And that's why some of that was left a bit open in the condition of the zoning board's decision. But where it can go is an appeal to the full 5-member zoning board of appeals by the developer. So if you don't, if you go, well, I don't want to, you see, some of this I don't want to say publicly, because it's a tactic that could be used by a developer. But if you go beyond the appeal route as the ZBA, I'm not going to go into any more detail about that. I don't want it to favor anybody against a town board. But that's where it would go. And then subsequent to that, it could go to a court of law. Finally, please state in layman's terms the legal status of the zoning board's authority to restrict the planning board's review and approval of the 40A project and site plan as part of the granted use variance associated with a 40B project. Is the use variance still valid? With no appeal of the use variance, it was determined to be within the zoning board's authority to grant the relief with the conditions. That's the fundamental answer to that. No appeal was taken. The courts would say on any subsequent challenge that would be collateral to that, that in fact that decision made it so that the zoning board did not exceed its authority in this particular case. Just like a variance or a special permit. They did not exceed their authority because no appeal was taken. No appeal was taken, as far as I can determine, because all of this apparently had been worked out in public sessions with the abutters that stepped forward, who had a very well-known Chapter 40B counsel, or zoning and Chapter 40B counsel, Attorney Dan Hill. On page 2, paragraph 4 of the legal opinion, it references an agreement between the proponent and immediate abutters. Again, this is leading into this. What is the legal status of the agreement? As I said, it was recorded.
which is unprecedented in my experience of how you settle neighborhood issues. It is absolutely the best way to settle neighborhood issues. Now, regardless of having recorded that, the risk factor was that a regulatory board could say, that's wonderful, but we're still going to decide it our way. And in this case, great deference was paid, from what I can see, to that restrictive covenant agreement with the direct abutters. On page 2, paragraph 6, it states the full membership of the ZBA, 5 members granted the use variance, yet all but 3 are recused from the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on the project itself. Please explain the distinction between the 2 votes and how the member could recuse from one and not the other. This is not part of my opinion response. We are not aware of what the reasons were for recusal. It's really not germane to site plan review opinion. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why they did that, but you know, whatever occurred is not relevant to what you're trying to consider. You're trying to get into the detail of the site plan review to the extent that you've been permitted to do that, and you got to work out through this process how far you can go with the developer, with me present to help guide you and assist you. On page 2, the last 2 paragraphs reference the requirement in the use variance for furnishing full engineered plans. I got to tell you, that was my idea in the early process of the Zoning Board of Appeals when they were trying to decide it on a concept plan, and I made it clear that really in that particular case and for your review, you needed fully engineered plans. So that issue was stopped and that was added to it. Sometimes no good deed goes unpunished, but that was the intent of that, to have those plans available. You note that to date and until tonight, you didn't receive the full final plans, yet the expiration was the site was August 17th. You asked me to comment on the time frame. You know, basically, you have 2 interplays here. You know, certain plans they claim came in with 98% completion in April. You decided in your administrative discretion to wait until you got the 100% plans. I mean, it could go either way. You could have decided to review the 98% plans, or you could say, no, we're gonna wait and we'll see the 100% plans. The 100% plans are in now. There was some rigidity as to how much time you would have. I tried to get that squared away so that you had as much time as reasonably could be considered. I think that's been resolved, at least for now, but we'll monitor that with you. On page 4, the first 2 paragraphs cite cases which illustrate the need for 40B projects to be financially feasible. Were there public safety concerns raised in either of the cases they cited? And Jepson was really the focal point case. I think that was an 06 case. In that case, I cited because it was the Supreme Judicial Court, the highest court in the Commonwealth, so I felt that that case had to be cited as to the issue. The only traffic issue that was addressed in the decision by the SJC had to do with a condition relative to monitoring and addressing traffic. I don't know if there was a high safety issue because it's not in the reported case, but the normal consequence was that they included a condition throughout that process recognized for monitoring and addressing traffic. The follow-up on this is, at what point does public safety take priority over the developer's profit versus loss? I almost consider that as a rhetorical question because public safety always is above profit and loss. Public safety, health, and welfare is the fundamental concerns. So I think that answers it, but to the extent that you're reviewing this in the context of a 40B, everything elevates. Everything under the standard of 40B to ensure affordable housing is elevated. So now you go, instead of saying public safety, compelling public safety, it has to be egregious. It has to be the highest level possible to result in either a condition that might be considered uneconomic or a denial. Reference was made to a recent well-publicized case mentioned in public meetings. I had not been in any of those meetings. It was the Madison Place Sudbury LLC case, but it wasn't mentioned in the opinion. What is the notable similarity or distinction? Well, first of all, that's not a reported case. If I'm thinking of the correct case, that had two components. One, a DEP appeal, and there was a denial on a successor or a DEP's decision on order of conditions. And the other part of the case started, I believe, in the Superior Court and then found its way collaterally into land court under what they call the public permit session. It's a rarity to get there. That case was not a reported case in the high level of cases, and from my recollection vaguely several months ago, that case went to trial, but then it was resolved, and then a stipulation of dismissal was filed on the case before Judge Foster, and I did verify that the final outcome of that case was a dismissal. So I don't know what the components of the case were, but it's not a reportable case, but for HAC decisions, I wouldn't enter that level case into the high level of issue that you're asking me to address. That's it. That's it in summary, based upon the questions you asked.
Thank you very much. I think that rolled through pretty well. I see that others may have some follow-up questions. I know we don't want to drill down into infinite detail or, go into many areas that you feel that we've already covered, but I'd like to give it a try. Let's see what the questions are and see to what extent you feel comfortable answering them here and now, or later, or not at all.
And I'll be glad to do that to an extent, but if I decline an answer, it might be that I don't want to give legal strategy out that could be used against town boards or to benefit those that appear before you.
Thank you.
I'm trying hard to make sure that doesn't happen, because this is unprecedented to have this kind of general inquiry into the substance of a legal opinion. All right, having said that.
Right. I mean, the whole purpose of this is to learn the rules and the process better than get a better understanding for them. And through your responses and most recently the responses that we got from our consultant that you'll be able to review when you look at the tape. And then at some point between now and September 19th, we would hope that you would be able to either be here on September 19th with our consultant or meet separately. But we can get into that. Mr. Mills.
I'm gonna need a minute to get my thoughts. Can I pass?
Mr. Jenks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That cleared up several questions that I had. I had only submitted one question, as you probably could tell, the first one that you addressed. But I see areas where I suppose it would make great debating team discussions, how far you go with this or with that, but that was very helpful to me. I appreciate your thoughts on it. I still feel that we've been stumped on parts of this project, and there ought to be some way of getting around that, but I'm going to keep looking. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Luttrell.
Thank you. I have a question on, it was brought up at the last meeting on the use variance, and it's past 1 year, whether that has lapsed.
Well, that's not part of what I was asked to address in this opinion. But if you're asking me to attempt to address that, again, this is something that has to be decided by the developer, not by me. I have to defend whatever occurs in that regard. but I'm going to presume for the limited response, because I think that came in as a letter response from someone else, that the project is under a disability to use the use variance because of the fact that it's an integrated project, the 40B permit has not issued, and site plan approval, which was a condition of the use variance, has not been completed. I don't want to go beyond that. I'm just trying to answer that as best I can without tripping this into another area.
All set, Mrs. Latrell, for now? Mr. Mills?
So, I neglected to say before, thank you, because,
That's okay.
this is very, enlightening for me. So I guess my one additional follow-up would be when you said the integration cannot be excessive, for the two plans. Did I hear that correctly?
The integration cannot be excessive?
That's what I thought I heard you say, that the integration of the 40B and the 40A cannot be excessive. Did I hear that incorrect?
It was relative to the 10,
My example
Oh, I
in
see,
there.
your example,
Yeah.
well, the example was, well, that example abused the standard, is what I was saying. The example was a ZBA permit for a 10-unit project of 3 affordable units, plus a ancillary, incidental, collateral, 100-unit project, market rate. That's an abuse of the standard. I mean, this one was negotiated. The projects are similar in, I think, density, and it is heavy density, there's no question about that. But there was a parity, I think, of what was market and where the market was going versus where the 40B was going. The example given, I kept saying it's an abuse of the standard. It's an attempt to abuse the ability to integrate a market project with a 40B. Because you're giving very little affordable housing and getting a lot of market rate.
I think I made the comment that that example was exaggerated to make the point.
And that's why I called it, is that a rhetorical question?
Yeah.
But-
So, okay, so then, again, so for my own knowledge then, and going off just what was said tonight, so then I guess, in order for the project to get to the point where it's at now, it must not be deemed excessive for the integration.
When you say excessive for what purpose?
For bringing in for profit, the 40A piece.
The courts are telling us that if you can get affordable housing, and as a result of the project proposal, the proposed developer needs market rate projects, and the end result is viable, affordable housing. Is this 25 units? Is it more than 20? I can't remember.
It's 40, isn't it?
20, 40 units? 40 affordable units? Then that's permissible.
25%.
It's 40 units.
I think that's right. 36? 46.
46.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
So, what I'll do is ask if any of the public wants to, come up and say something. Again, I don't want to get into the merits necessarily, the scientific or the technical details of the project, because council is here more on the process and on the statute and the regulations, and his ability to guide the town boards through it. So if we can focus on that, and then respect, I believe, respect council's ability to answer our questions. He may be able to answer and want to answer, but needs more time to look at it, or, as he stated earlier, to another question, he went as far as he felt he should as town council.
That's all true. To take more time to answer a resident's question, it has to graduate to become a concern of the client I represent, which is the board. Respectfully, I don't represent the residents individually. We all represent the town. But it has to graduate to your concern for me to address it.
Understood.
All right.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Dave Schwartz, 55 Flag Road. Thank you to the board, Mr. Cipriani. It's hard to know where to begin, and I will try to be brief because it's late, but I also want to be focused. I just want to start by saying that another point of view is worth 80 IQ points. And I've guided my life on that basis. And in this case, I think it's highly appropriate. So the point of view I'd like to bring to this is the concept of the Big Bang Theory. And I don't want to belittle the process that has progressed because it's impressive. It's impressive how the plans have been developed. It's impressive how the board and all the different components of the town have responded to that. So please don't misinterpret my comments in any respect as belittling the process. The notion of the safety, and I don't want to disrespect Mr. Morris's comment, but I do want to restate a very simple point, that what we've got going on here is an original sin. And the original sin really goes back to a notification called the Certificate of the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs on the expanded ENF, Environmental Notification Form, which was allowed by Secretary Beaton on February 26th, but was based on certain guidance that was very specific to the developer at the Capital Group. And those, not only was there an egregious misrepresentation of the traffic data, which I've made a very specific record of to the various boards, but in fairness, there is a complete disregard by the developer to what is an egregious safety issue, which I don't think I'm going to have any equipment malfunctions tonight. And I know I've been struggling with the boards. I'd rather use a digital presentation. But this intersection, which is, so here's Route 9, that's Flag Road. In the February 25th letter from Secretary Beaton, he specifically said that the developer needs to maximize the distance between the intersection of Flag Road and 495 North. And to Howard Rose's point, straightening this and moving it less than a half a car length simply does not meet that objective. And the safety issue that's associated with this intersection was completely misrepresented. There's a trend of over 6 times the number of accidents at this intersection already. So I just want to make sure I repeat what I believe is the Big Bang Theory here, is that there's an ill-begotten certificate that's based on a complete misrepresentation of the traffic data in that study. And there are 7 misrepresentations, which I've listed, notwithstanding the total number of accidents that are out of the MDOT database, which were misrepresented by the developer in that initial study that Secretary Beaton was willing to accept and waive this safety review by the MDOT because he accepted that data. That's the original sin. That's where you've got that triple-headed monster that's growing. Notwithstanding, the traffic study completely ignores the bus routes. Now, we had Ben Kais who presented the issue of over 50 stops, and I've identified over 100 stops during rush hour on all the feeder roads, totally ignored. So to just leave it there, Bonnie Faniff did, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, commit that there would be a meeting on Flag Road safety, and I haven't seen that scheduled yet, and I certainly expect that to be scheduled before any vote on the legal aspect of whether the ZBA has a right to do what they, have done or not. But I would like to comment on the legal aspect from, again, a slightly different point of view. So I have an objection to the matter of whether the ZBA has the right to proceed the way it has. I know there are a number of other issues that are floating and that, I don't have the knowledge about or necessarily want to comment on that are in opposition to this current position with regard to the ZBA. But it is clear from the filing of the proponent and the representations in the variances of June 11th and the notice of decision on a use variance, hereinafter the decision, as recorded in the Worcester Town of Deeds, that the proponent regards the project to be immutably incorporate both 40B and 40A. They indicate that the two components are intertwined in the strict sense that a fully engineered site plan comprising a comprehensive permit must be provided by the proponent for approval, requiring both 40A and 40B from the outset. On page 4 of the variances, it was decided on June 11th, it states the proponent requires to get approval of such a composite site plan and expects that approval to be from the ZBA. Specifically, they assert composite plans are necessary as road and building layouts and footprints are an integral facet of stormwater drainage and utility locations, i.e. for both 40A and 40B. Therefore, I, as a movement, assert that this is not a 40B only application. In point of fact, we have an opportunity to make case law. There are no cases that I've looked at, and I've reviewed the cases that were proposed briefly, and I don't see them being on mark. That in fact, the hybrid nature of this plan is unique to Southborough and unique in that it represents a situation that does not map onto precedence law. Further, the proponent has sought relief from the outset that allows for the residential development on industrially park zoning districts, as well as the spilling of all traffic from Park Central onto Flag Road, not limited to the current 40A and 40B, but also to a substantially unspecified future development of 9 acres, which is 100% 40A. In the spilling of all that traffic from John Boland, in order to garner economic returns, does not without ambiguity make this just a 40B project. If this were only 40B, the fully engineered site plan would not incorporate features that would affect the treatment of the site itself, but notwithstanding this point, the exercise of variances which affect scenic roads, in particular, the now use of Flag Road in both directions would statutorily fall under planning board jurisdiction. I honestly cannot believe that a variance that references a site plan, which the variance that was actually decided on June 11th for a site plan in the draft EIR, which appeared on June 25th, specifically violates the MDOT guidance that no left turn should be permitted. And therefore, incorporation of a full site plan, which has the road configuration that allows for a variance to permit traffic flow onto Flag Road going left, is simply objected to on the assertion, making the decision, trying to assert this is only 40B, would not be able to decide on variance impacting the scenic roads. In the referenced opinion of July 11th above, and that of the opinion of the attorney, respectfully, the zoning board has advocated for and subsequently used the legal opinion that this is 40B and therefore allows for the expedited, streamlined, and priority rights and approval of site plans to justify the variances of June 11th, as well as the right to approve a comprehensive site plan and final site plan, simply leaving residual approvals to the planning board. Totally object to this. It is the movement's motion and petition based on the related legal opinion that any such authority of ZBA for this project be curtailed retroactively to the decision on the variances of July 11th, and that the planning board, and other Southborough town boards be given the statutory and town authority by law that they have for full site approval under 40A regulations as in any project of this impact and immutable configuration. I finally assert in point of summary that this is a 40A project at the outset, immutably and strictly inseparable by assertion of the proponent, as it is comprised of not only residential housing but also other commercial and business developments whose impact should only come under standard town operating procedures. Any variances which have been granted by the ZBA are herein petitioned and motioned to be revoked, not only by reasons cited in the formal appeal, the ill-begotten certificate objections and traversals due to misrepresentation of the TIA, but also based on an objection by the movement to use 40B streamlining to achieve variances that enable commercial objectives that make it 40A configuration from the outset, and which further encumber the true neighborhood of Southborough, which incorporates Flag Road and all of its residents who were not notified and who were not given any opportunity to appeal the variance that there were only apparently 6 abutters, not a dozen, and that is not the neighborhood. Not limited to all the roads connecting to the intersection of the study area scoped by the DEIR of the proponent and set forth in their EENF of January 25th, 2016. So I think I made myself clear. I hope everyone understands what we're about to do, but this is the best I can do to explain my position. And I don't know what, response would be appropriate at this point.
Mr. Jenks.
You mentioned several times variances of July 11th. Can you?
The opinion of July 11th, I meant to say. The variance of the decision of June 11th.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. I am commenting on the legal opinion, an opinion on the legal opinion of July 11th relating to the variance decision
Understood.
of June 11th.
I do want to thank you for what's obviously a lot of time and work. In fact, I'll extend that to all of the neighbors who have participated in this project and in our meetings in particular, for the time and energy and work that you guys have put into this project. It's important to the planning board to hear those comments. I'll speak as an individual, and even though I personally may disagree with some of the comments that are made, they're valuable. And I for one, want to thank you for the effort. So.
There's no question in there.
Counsel.
Yeah, there's no question in there, respectfully, but there was a challenge to a factual statement I made. The recorded restrictive covenant contains 12 names, and as long as you treat husband and wife as equally being able to enter into such agreement for their proprietary interest, it's 12 abutters. That was my point.
But 6 properties.
Whatever properties, 12 abutters, 12 people who have the authority to sign because they own those properties.
So now we're clear on the difference between
Okay,
the
there
6
we
and
go.
the 12.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rose.
Thank you. First of all, Town Council, thank you for being here this evening. I appreciate it. I always like listening to you actually, explain things that us layman people don't always understand. So I guess my first question goes back to that to the abutters, and what is the legal ramifications that only 6 properties, 12 abutters, the rest of the abutters were not part of that. What legal ramifications might they have, as apparently they state they were not notified, and there are other direct abutters, particularly right on Flag Road, that were not part of that agreement. as well as the rest of the town, how are they legally represented in this when 6 abutters form the basis of this agreement?
Respectfully, that's a question you have to ask of a private legal counsel. All I can tell you is that it was publicly notified relative to the use variance hearings, and it was settled with those that stepped forward with a counsel, and thereafter, no one took an appeal. If an appeal had been taken under the use variance, this would be an entirely different process, but no such appeal was taken.
Thank you, and
It has been adjudicated.
And that brings me to my next question. You mentioned before, there was a question, I think it was by Ms. Luttrell, that about the use variance, and it was stated that the use variance has not expired because it has not gone into effect because other documents were not signed and got into play yet.
Because other reliefs have not been granted.
Okay. So with that, does that mean as it has not started, why would the appeal process not be over then? Could someone still appeal?
I'm sorry, again?
Could someone still appeal at this point, since it hasn't actually been
Appeal
approached
what?
yet? Appeal the use variance?
No, the statute is clear that the period of time to take appeal under 40A has lapsed.
Thank you. And what is that period? 30 days?
20 days.
20 days. Thank you.
You're welcome.
John Green, 10 Tower Road. I'd like to stay on that topic for a minute. If the use variance actually needed additional plans, and this is where it goes back to why some of the folks that, well, we didn't necessarily understand what the use variance meant, but if additional plans were needed for us to understand what the use variance was going to actually mean, and what you're saying is the use variance actually hasn't gone into effect because the plans were never submitted. So I'm not sure how the appeal process starts, a 20-day appeal process starts. So, you know, again, this is all, I think, was a plan of the developer to do all of this backwards, right? So you go get a use variance, but you never have a plan, so nobody knows what you're actually going to build. And then the process is then over because he hasn't submitted plans, and we were supposed to appeal what exactly? There was nothing to appeal at that point.
There was,
There was
sir.
no plan to appeal.
There was. It's the difference between the use that was granted by that variance. That was what occurred at the Zoning Board of Appeals level. What is adjudicated, or what was not appealed, was the use for the market rate project. What is still pending is the equivalent of residual or supplemental site plan adjustments. The use is set. Now adjust the site to mitigate the effect in the neighborhood, but conform with the use that was granted.
Okay.
That's as clear as I can make it.
Okay, well, I'm sure it will come out in an appeal or a lawsuit
Well,
after
I'm
the
not
fact, but-
gonna get into that.
The other question I have is around the June 27th continuous of the process, right? The public hearing was extended, but not the continuance of the actual project itself. But somehow that showed up as a project being extended till August 31st. So maybe you could explain to us how that happened. It didn't happen in open meeting. There was no vote that was taken by the ZBA to extend the actual project, just the open meeting, or just the public meeting. So I'm not sure how that happened, kind of behind closed doors. The project actually had expired on 6/27, and now we have it open till 8/31. So maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, well, that's not part of the decision or opinion that I gave to the planning board relative to their inquiries, and I have given advice to the town relative to that, but that's under the lawyer-client privilege.
Okay, so we're still waiting on information around how that happened? The
I've
town
answered the
is?
question for you, sir.
Okay. And how do you feel about Leo Bartolini not recusing himself from this project from the onset?
I'm not gonna comment on that.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
We just want to make sure that we show it's getting late, people getting tired, and, you know, it tends to be, the more we talk about this,
I'd like to confine it to the.
we get
the
frustrated and the emotions come out, so we're getting close to the end here. I think council's been very accommodating.
Thank you for the opportunity to be heard during public comment. I'm just going to read into the record, please. To whom it may concern, please incorporate this letter as part of the record in consideration of the above-named project. BOS, please attach this letter to your response and communications with local and state entities, including MEP and Mass DOT. I'm wondering if the use variance has expired. Southborough Board of Appeals decision dated May 27, 2015, relative to the petition of William A. DePietri in Park Central LLC, Park Central Drive, for a use variance filed with the clerk on June 11, 2015. Please note that per Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, the key part reads, if the rights authorized by a variance are not exercised within 1 year of the date of the grant of such variance, such rights shall lapse. And provided, however, that the permit granting authority in its discretion and upon written application by the grantee of such rights may extend the time for exercise of such rights for a period not to exceed 6 months. And provided further that the application for such extension is filed with such permit granting authority prior to the expiration of such 1 year period. Therefore, I'm wondering if the use variance has expired in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 10. I would appreciate a response at your earliest convenience. I hope you find the above information helpful. Thank you. If the concern is constructive approval, the amount of time that they, first of all, there's nothing to constructively approve because nothing's been granted, but the amount of time that they would have had to have filed has also expired. So that's just a comment. Because the agenda addresses the DEIR, as brought up at the last meeting, it's just, I don't want to repeat the comments of the good citizens here, which I fully back. But it's unbelievable to me that there's been no adequate water study for this. So again, I'll read into the record because it's just easier. To whom it may concern, please incorporate this letter as part of the record in consideration of the above-named project. BOS, please attach this letter to any correspondence in response to local and state entities, including MEP and Mass DOT. Please note that neither the original water study prepared by Pear Corporation, or the June 28th, 2016 revised report, which we just got days ago, by the same is publicly posted. So neither one is publicly posted. However, these reports have been in the possession of the DPW and Mark Purple, the town administrator. I'm wondering why these documents have not been publicly posted, particularly the original report, which I would love to see. To date, there have been no known public discussions at the ZBA or the Planning Board, except as brought up by the citizen taxpayers, on the matter of the 2016 original and/or revised water study and the findings of those reports. The revised study focuses on water adequacy and infrastructure for both the 40B and the market rate 40A section of the project. This would include future development of an assisted living facility and the hotel as explicitly referenced in the report. So it's absolutely building in the futures. It treats it as one thing because guess what? You gotta know whether or not you're gonna have enough water pressure or what kind of infrastructure you need in order to build the thing. Importantly, the revised study contains certain assumptions, including pipe size, still to be verified. And the following conclusion. The key part reads, page 2, under proposed option 1. It appears as though the system pressure in the proposed development would be inadequate under existing systems conditions.
We're starting, I think it's okay to talk about this, but we're starting to get into the technical piece of this. So if the concern, if you can refer to the technical pieces in general.
Yeah.
And then highlight the concern.
Okay, well,
which seems to be a lack of a study.
Lack of study, I'll highlight the concerns. The report examines 2 alternatives. To address the low pressures in the proposed development, Pear evaluated a second piping configuration. And basically, it just says that, you need a pump station in order to have fire safety and an adequate water pressure to second floors. And this is all based on a hypothetical, by the way. Then it goes on to state that the pipe sizing and configuration, again, was all an assumption just for the sake of the study, but it's really the responsibility of the owner and their engineer. Okay? Where's the confirmation of all that? And we're about to prove this thing. The report concludes Southborough's water system cannot supply adequate domestic service to the majority of the proposed development. So I'm quoting right out of the report. Southborough's water system cannot supply adequate domestic service to the majority of the proposed development zone without a booster pump. The needed fire flow for this development was not provided to PAIR for this evaluation. So it is not known if the available flows are sufficient. That's the conclusion of the report. So there are outstanding questions. I'm wondering why a second draft decision to approve is before the ZBA and the planning board when during the seeming 11th hour, it is unknown if there's adequate water supply. You know, why isn't this in the draft environmental impact report supplied to the state by the developer? So they're in the dark. And it should be a recommendation and condition of each of these boards that any costs belonging, that any of the costs associated with any of this belongs to the developer and not to the taxpayers. We are not paying for this. I would appreciate a response at your earliest convenience. I hope you find the above information helpful. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? It's 10 o'clock. We've had council here for the whole meeting. We have a couple of other agenda items. So last chance. Oh, yes, Mrs. Littrell.
I have a question on Jepson versus CBA,
Yes,
which is the,
the Ipswich case.
yeah, that allows for the inclusion of a commercial property within a 40B. In that, in your letter, it said, the ZBA had the authority to override the dimensional requirements for a commercial use pursuant to 40B because the local zoning bylaw permitted the property to be developed for commercial use. However, in this case, it's in industrial park zone, so the townhouses are not allowed within our bylaw.
The multifamily use, I believe that that's, I believe it's not. You're asking why did they approach it this way?
Well-
Why did the applicant approach it this way?
Well, I'm asking,
It is industrial.
I'm asking how the case applies.
The case applies by the very citation I gave you that shows that integrating a commercial component on the overall aspect of the site is permissible as an integrated site to get 40B housing. That's the intent of what I'm trying to address to you under the Jepson case.
Right, but it says because the commercial use was allowed within the zoning bylaw. But the use of the multifamily housing in an industrial park is not allowed in our zoning bylaw.
That's not the reason I cited you this case. I cited you the case for as close as I could find to the highest court in the Commonwealth addressing the integration issue of the mixed uses.
Okay, I understand that, but my question is, in that case, the use that was not 40B that was integrated was already allowed within the zoning bylaw,
I don't
where
think-
in this case it is not.
Okay, and I don't think that makes any difference. I think that it's a statement. What I had to find was an answer to the question of how can you integrate this site, 40A and 40B, all right? It's not in 40B because it never would have been envisioned in 40B because of the use variance. It's not going to be in the regulations. It can only be found in case law. And I say, in my opinion, that there is no case directly on point for the Park Central concept, but this is as close as you can get to it as an interpretation by the highest court of the Commonwealth.
Mrs. Shimkus.
Karen Shimkus, Lynbrook Road. I have to say, I completely, 200% disagree. I think it's worth checking into. I think a use that is illegal under current zoning, you cannot use a use variance to make it legal. I would encourage you to look into that thoroughly. That's what has been explained to me by some very good sources, so I would encourage you to look into that.
No, with all due respect. A use variance allows any use, this is the horrific aspect of the so-called use variance. It allows a use that otherwise would not be, in effect, it's a zoning change by 5 members of a board instead of by a town meeting by its 2/3 vote. So that is incorrect as a matter of law. And that's the nature of this thing, that this zoning relief, that in the state's wisdom, when they created Chapter 40A, which was incorporated by 808 in 1975, and it became effective in 1978. And the only reason I know that is because I went to Boston College Law, and the co-proponent, Dean Richard Huber, who created 40A, I took every course I could during that period of time, because I was in law school between 75 and 78, the exact time when that came into effect, and I learned everything possible about the effect and the intent of 40A. And that is and even it was discussed at that point, is why towns would keep it is beyond the drafters of that new zoning, but they felt that there was so much pushback by municipalities in 1974 and 75 in public hearings that they would give it the discretion of the towns. And Southborough got caught into the web and left it in. A big mistake procedurally. Anyway, that's all I can say to that point.
Despite a more recent attempt to have them removed, have the use variance removed, that did not prevail at town meeting.
And that is very true, and it's an unfortunate, it happened, that's town meeting's action, but it was an unfortunate thing to occur, and we spoke very strongly as a matter of law as to why it should have been deleted from the bylaw.
I'd like to move on to the next, and I think the last item with you, Counsel.
Okay.
And that is with our 40B consultant, Judy Barrett. As you know, she was here last Thursday for our meeting, and you were absent. You're here tonight, and she couldn't make it tonight. So if possible, I'd like to get you and Judy together, perhaps with the town planner, and maybe get some feedback from the board, but as to who else may want to attend. But I think initially, if you're willing to meet with Judy and go over some of these points that, from her, she just came on board in July and is, diving into this 40B project and process. She's been able to give us and the public some of her opinion, but I think I think in the public session, she said that she's really looking forward to having a meeting with you. So can we try to find a day and time where you would be willing to meet?
I have actually worked with Judy before on the failed comprehensive zoning change. I know her well, and of course, if that assists this board, I'd be glad to.
Great. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item. Mr. Mills?
Just want to thank town council again. I appreciate your opinion and guidance.
Thank you.
This is more fun than last week.
Oh, yeah.
Next item on the agenda is the planner's report. Did you want to say anything? Josephine is going to go through. Tell us about this, as we received it and we have to look at it. It's in our packet.
We received details of the addition of a bus shelter within the parking lot at the NECC campus at 12 Pleasant Street. And I I think Beth from Conservation, the Conservation Commission has taken a look at it, and they don't feel that it's added any additional impervious cover that has not been treated. So I think they're looking for a certificate of compliance. I'm not sure what the status of that is, because Beth was out of the office still earlier today.
Now, that bus shelter is built,
Yeah.
and as part of that packet was a comment from the engineer
Yes.
indicating that it had no impact on
On
the drainage
yes,
calculations.
exactly.
It added a minor amount of impervious area, and we wanted to that was in our packet, we wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then, same thing. There's one other item. Oh, the other item was relative to, that might have, no, I guess still within the planner's report, we have the future meetings that we have planned. We stated earlier in the night, our next planning board meeting is September 19th. That agenda right now is a 7 o'clock public hearing, site plan review, 255 Turnpike Road. These have been posted, right?
Yes, they have.
So when you go to the website, the town's website, and click on the calendar, the September calendar, the little box for September 19th will show this, right?
Mhm.
Planning board meeting.
Yes, it will.
And then the second item is the 7:45 public hearing, which is the revisions to the solar bylaw rules and regulations. We talked about those at our last meeting, and the board indicated that the town planner was free to go ahead and advertise that. And then the third item, which is what we added tonight, is an 8:15 continued public hearing for the Park Central. And hopefully, we encourage the feedback, but from your feedback, we've changed the way that we're posting these meetings so that people can see in advance that the board is meeting, and hopefully be able to see what the agenda items are, even though they may be changing right up until 48 hours before the meeting. But the feedback we've received over this summer is that it's better to just inform the public that we intend to meet, and whatever items that are on that agenda can be shown, with the understanding that they may change, things may get added, things may get revised, and we're allowed to do that up to 48 hours before the posted meeting. And there's also things that can be added to the agenda if, according to the town clerk's guidance, things that, I forget how it's worded, but it's basically things that come up that are somewhat compelling to be able to discuss. So, and then the other item has to do with meeting minutes. There's 3 sets of meeting minutes that have not, or meeting minutes for 3 meetings that we haven't posted yet, because we haven't voted on them. The planning department has received three of those 3.
Yes.
But because of, go ahead, Jyoti.
This morning, we had computer issues, as some of you know. The phones weren't working, some of the computers were down, so I did not get a chance to edit them and send them back to Destiny. So we couldn't get them on the agenda for today. There are computers that are still down in the building. So for next, we'll do it on the agenda on September 19th.
Anything else from the board, town planner, or anything?
Nothing else, thank you.
Anyone from the public? Yes, Mr. Jenks.
I'd just like to enter the request once again. We really have to start posting packets along with agendas for the meetings. I know for tonight's meeting, I had the packet, it was a week and a half ago, and yet it's not on the website. I think I've been after this for over a year. I know somebody in the corner over there has been after it even longer. And I would really like to make that a priority. within the planning department to get the packets online.
I totally agree, and I'll work on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills?
So I've been asked a number of times by residents on Lover's Lane about the home we approved a while back that is being developed on the east side. I specifically recall, I know this wasn't on our agenda, but I was hoping we could discuss this in terms of process. There was a buffer that was supposed to be kept between the home and the abutter facing the south side of Flag Road. And if you drive by there, it looks like it's been pretty much clear cut. If there was a concern about that and someone wanted to raise that, they would go to the building enforcement officer, correct? So, just wanted to confirm that that was the case.
What the planning board approved was the approval not required, the A&R that created the lot, right?
Correct. And
It subdivided an existing lot on Lover's Lane that created a new lot
correct.
on, that has now been, has a house being constructed,
Correct.
driveways and other things.
Okay.
So, did you get your answer? Or did
Well,
you
no,
give
I was
yourself
just
the
confirming,
answer?
just confirming aloud that would be the appropriate avenue to raise if there was concern about the way it was developed.
Zoning enforcement officer,
Thank you.
building inspector. Is there anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
No, we got
Oh,
Freddie up there.
Sorry.
Yes, Freddie.
Sorry.
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, 78 Southville Road.
Now, we've had a good meeting, and the board has not, I think we got through it okay. I thought it was okay. So, no matter what you say, you have to finish it with either a compliment to us or to the people of Southborough.
Well, I'll start it. You're all looking very handsome and pretty tonight, so.
So it's gonna go downhill from there.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
so, I'm just wanted to ask about a citizen's petition that I believe you're aware of that the signatures have been certified. It's for the elimination of the use variance proposed by myself, Sam Stivers, and Jack and Louise Barron for a special town meeting, and I'm just curious, we need to have shouldn't say we, but the planning board is required to have a public hearing, and then you have to write a report, and I just want to be sure it's on track to be done before the special town meeting, and as it takes time to advertise, and then it has to be, once it's in the paper, it takes time to get it in the paper, and then it takes 2 weeks, and your next meeting is until the end of September? So will you post it for that meeting, and will you be able to get that report written? Because if you don't write the report, then doesn't meet the, you can write the report, and it would be eligible for a special town meeting, but if you don't, it won't be, because it won't have the required amount of time to have passed.
Let the town planner speak first. Jyoti?
I was waiting on the certified signatures. We got that today, but I still need to find out what the procedure is to advertise and everything else, which we can start on tomorrow.
Hillary was out today. This was delivered late in the day.
Yeah. I
From the
got it.
town clerk's office, as we had talked about earlier. Once we get it from the town clerk's office, then we take over as far as coordinating with the proponent to make sure that the public hearing notice is done right, and then Hillary sends it off to the newspaper and begins the process. So, is she gonna be in tomorrow?
Yeah, she is.
So we'll jump on this tomorrow, and feel free to check in later in the day.
I guess my concern is, because you are the ones who advertise public hearings, and you have the petition with the exact language that was on the petition, will the planning board be the ones advertising that?
I believe the answer is yes.
So I don't have to write the advertisement?
No, I think Hillary will do it, or you, or feel free to call her or come in. If I remember right, how it gets done is Hillary kind of takes the lead and makes, she knows from, you know, experience, the little things that have to be addressed to make sure that it's legal, and she knows the timing and of the submittal and who to send it to and all of that.
Okay. I think we'd prefer that Hillary take care of it, but we'd probably want a review before it went to press, just to double check.
Oh, she won't send it off until whoever one or more of the proponents look at it and say that it's good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, feel free to give Hillary a call tomorrow, probably in the afternoon, and see where she is with it.
Okay, and
If I know her, she'll probably call you before then.
you ran a great meeting tonight.
Oh, great, thank you. Mr. Mills,
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Thank you. Good night.